And we are off. It is the day before Cinco de Mayo, which means the 4th of May. So, in keeping with tradition, May the 4th be with you on what we think is going to be a very special show. Hello, welcome to the weekend. Welcome to one of the great weekends of the year. You've got the Derby, you've got Cinco de Mayo, you've got this show. Who knows what else you have, but we are here, and we intend to keep you company for the next 4 hours. A lot of fours in there on May 4th. Headlines to begin on this program was set up. Kirby Smart, other coaches, big winners in college athletics. So what's going on at Georgia? They're making money. They're winning. A lot of interesting factors that go into all that, and we'll talk about it a little bit later on. John Parker Wilson was Nick Saban's first starting quarterback, and in an interview today said, Jeremy Pruitt's hire at UT, he scares me more than Kirby does at Georgia. Okay. That's sure to get you quoted. That's sure to get your comments aggregated across the Twitterverse. Meanwhile, Georgia AD, Greg McGarity, said they could play Clemson as soon as 21. That's a good game. Two of the best schools in the country, and we will watch that one very closely. And welcome to Friday. Glad you are with us. We have a lot to do on the program today. A couple of very special guests will drop by with pretty strong ties, and we'll talk to the aforementioned Chip Towers about the Dogs and what's happening over in Athens. Dave Bartoo, remember a couple weeks ago he was on here? He was fascinating, and I said, we got to get this guy back, and so did you. He'll join us, Andy Staples, a staple on the program. We have a couple of touring professionals joining us shortly. One from Georgia, one from Auburn. We'll try to keep them separated when they show up here, if they show up at the same time. And your phone calls at 855-242-7285. This man here was mentioned on a few of the best caller lists the other day. Hugh from Deep Gap, North Carolina. How are you, Hugh?
Hello, Paul. I've been trying to wrap my head around how in the world you became such a TV icon. I mean, we all emulate, folks, but I think I finally put my handle on it.
Please tell us.
All right. The only other person I know that's as good with old ladies and little kids and animals is Johnny Carson. And when you stop and think about it, he had Ed McMahon and Doc Severinsen. And the reality is he had to move from New York out to Los Angeles, out to the ding-dong capital of the world, so he could find Don Rickles, you know, who's kind of like Jim, but he had a sense of humor, and Foster Brooks, who's Larry made over, and Tim Conway and Professor Irwin Corey, and then he had, of course, Angie Dickinson and Phyllis McGuire, and you've got Laura. You know, when you really stop and think about it, between Andy Taylor and Bob Newhart and Johnny Carson, you had to become successful.
Wow, you're talking about one of my heroes there, Johnny Carson.
He was the absolute best that ever did it, but he didn't have to work 20 hours a week, and you do.
Well, he had Mondays and Fridays off usually.
Well, especially later in life.
I'm getting to that point now where I'll just start working one day a week.
Well, that'd be pretty cool. Paul, I've got a serious note here. Socially incorrect behavior is kind of a sticky slice of the human condition, and it's a big mistake for us to waste time trying to eliminate contact with people that make us uncomfortable. They are the spice of life that make most of the rest of us feel socially acceptable. And when they're gone, for any reason, the empty seat that they leave at the table is always hard to fill. So while we may gnaw our teeth and become uncomfortable with some of the things that are said and some of the craziness that goes on, let's remember they fill up a very important role in what we all like to listen to here. But the bottom line is, for my phone call, you have got a wicked sense of humor that hides behind a cloak of sincerity. I thought for a while it was because you're a lawyer, But then I figured out that the prisons are full of most postgraduates that are in prison are lawyers. So that couldn't be what the answer was. Paul, you're good at it, and I know who you copied, buddy.
You got it. You're absolutely right. By the way, thanks to you. Some of my best friends are lawyers who happen to be in prison. And, well, I go visit them every Sunday. It's a long list by the end of the month. I have seen a lot of friends in prison. More phone calls at 855-242-7285. That is our number. And Don is on the beach down in Alabama. You're next up.
Paul, this is Don Douglas. I'm just first caller. I just wondered, when you were mentioning the best coaches in the SEC on the program a couple of months ago, you didn't mention Johnny Vaught at all. He was 24 years at Ole Miss, had 6 conference championships and 3 national championships, and his record was 190-61. And the only 2 coaches that ever beat him that had a better record, I mean, when they played him, beat him, was Bear Bryant won 7 against his 6, and Neyland 3 against his 2. And I just wondered why you completely left him out. Was that before your time?
Well, actually, it was, Don. But let me tell you, it doesn't matter whether it was before my time or not. I am a student of history, and I'm well aware of Johnny Vaught. In fact, I met him late in his life, and just one of the great gentlemen and characters in SEC. So, if I did that, it was just simply an inadvertent mistake on my part. But I am well aware of Coach Vaught's history and his success.
Well, listen, good to talk to you. I listen to your radio when I go pick up my grandson every day at elementary school. I listen to you every day.
Thank you very much. And I'm glad we cleared that up, because in no way, we're talking about Archie Manning's coach. We're talking about a coach in the 60s. He's the last coach to win an SEC title for Ole Miss. Won a couple of titles, had great players. Battled Bryant head-to-head so many times, and was just a great hero of so many people in that state. So I'm glad we could clear that up. It was not intentional, and sometimes, and I'm not letting you behind the curtain here. Sometimes you just start pontificating, and you're lucky at the end of the monologue whether you can remember your own name, let alone somebody else's. Thanks for the call. I want you to get. I'm about to go to Matt from San Antonio. Randy's back. What do you think? What do you think he wants to talk about?
How are you doing today, Paul?
Hey, Matt.
I thought about what you said yesterday.
Well,
about how not to be nervous and just be yourself on the show.
Yeah, you called in and you said you were nervous, and my response to you, and I think it would be to everyone, is be whoever you are. Don't try to be someone you're not. We have enough characters calling in every day trying to be comedians, and they're not.
Yeah, I thought about that. Really hard, Paul, and I'm like, he's right. I don't want to be somebody else. I'm not. I'm just going to be who I am. And I thought about that, Paul. And
I'm glad you did. And one thing I know you are is a loyal fan of A&M.
Thank you. I want to talk about A&M today. I want to talk about also, what would you consider if Oklahoma ever joined the SEC? Do you think A&M would dominate them? Pretty much if A&M and Oklahoma were in the same division of the SEC?
No, you said Oklahoma? Is that what you said?
Yeah, the Sooners. A couple years ago, expansion was going on.
Yeah, listen, I don't. First of all, I don't think Oklahoma will get in the SEC, but if they were in the SEC, I think it would be a great rivalry.
I mean, I'm not trying to sound like I'm trying to bash the other team, but I hear so much crap from Oklahoma fans and Texas fans all the time. I mean,
yeah.
But I just wanted to say, Paul, I think if Jimbo would have a successful season this year, I believe that he's not going to go 8-4, but he'll go 9-3. But I just want to give you a hypothetical scenario, Paul.
Okay.
Say if the Big 12 ever does dissolve or ever does expand, and they go after Memphis, SMU, and Houston, and Oklahoma leaves the Big 12, and they go to the SEC. How do you think they would fare against teams like A&M, Alabama, and all the rest of the teams in the SEC?
Yeah, well, thank you, Matt. First of all, I don't think if the SEC ever expanded, I think Oklahoma's the only legitimate one out of that group.
I just saved hundreds of dollars by switching to Geico. I feel like a whole new person. Disclaimer, you will not become a whole new person. This is impossible. You might be able to join a gym or diet program, buy a new wardrobe, get hair implants, but your DNA and physical form will remain the same. Geico waives any and all liability if you attempt to become a new person, except a cyborg. If you choose to become a half-human, half-cybernetic organism with lasers for eyes, the Geico legal team would be cool with that, because, quote, laser eyes are pretty sweet. Pew, 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 end quote.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
And welcome back. We are happy to be with you on a Friday afternoon. We mentioned the other day when Michael Collins dropped by that we are, I wouldn't say down the street, but not too far from where the Wells Fargo Championship is being conducted, not too far from our studio. So we've had a little bit of a golf tint this week. Keith Mitchell is in our studio. He is a University of Georgia golfer who is well steeped in SEC lore, having a pretty good tournament so far. Keith, thanks for being here.
Paul, thanks for having me on, man. This is awesome.
I guess when you know you're playing the weekend, you can relax a little bit on Friday afternoon and hang out with your favorite talk show. It's good to have you on. You were telling me before we got going, and we want to talk a little golf and a little dogs, but you've got a family that pretty well covers the SEC.
It was pretty funny growing up trying to figure out which team I wanted to root for. So, one granddad went to Alabama, one granddad went to Tennessee. And then my dad went to Vanderbilt and my mom went to Tennessee. So I kind of paved my own path and went a little south to the University of Georgia. And since then, I've been a diehard dog.
And we're going to get to that in a second. But I want to talk a little about golf because you were fairly recent on tour. You got out of Georgia a couple of years ago. And I want to talk about the challenge of getting to this tour where you play in events like this and so many other major for such major prizes. It's not easy.
It's not even close to easy, but it's fun. So that's what makes the challenge and the hard work worth it. So I mean, I started out on the Latin American tour for a year. Right out of college, I played probably 17, 18 weeks down in South America, which was a lot of fun. Learned a lot of stuff that you would it's just not part of your standard routine. So I did that for a year. I graduated from there to the Web.com tour and was on the Web.com tour for 2 years, and then made it out here this past season.
When you finally, I don't mean finally, because you can spend your whole career and not get out here. I mean, I know there's a sense of relief, but but it's not one of ever feeling comfortable, is it? Because it can change pretty quickly.
Well, it's you have to earn your card pretty much every year unless you won, and even if you win, it only gives you your card for an extra season.
Right.
So, and this is the top level of our sport. It's like the Major League of Baseball or the NBA in basketball. You can only go down from here. So every year is a challenge to try to just not only keep your card, but better your status for the years to come. So, I mean, there's guys out there like Davis Love and Vijay Singh who've played for 25 plus years, and those are the careers that you strive to achieve. So just being a rookie out here, I mean, I'm thinking about next season, which leads to the next, and hopefully down the road even longer.
You've had, as I mentioned, a good week. You were certainly on the leaderboard. Didn't end great, but as we're looking at your card from today, acting like we're on the Golf Channel, I would say after that birdie on 17, you were feeling really good. You went to 18, which I did not see what happened, although I've been out there. There's a lot of water on that hole. I'm guessing you found it.
We can erase that 7. I don't know if you have an eraser on your pencil, but no, actually, when I birdied 17, I think I was in the solo lead, and it was one of the best shots I hit all day. And I actually made bogey on 18 yesterday because I hit it in the water, and I was standing on that tee. I changed clubs, trying to play it a little bit differently, and that didn't work either. So I'm not really sure what we're going to do tomorrow, but we're going to try to make better than a 5 or a 7.
And I know it's disappointing, but on the other hand, I mean, you're in the tournament. You've had a good week. You can't let a bad shot affect you. You seem like you're still in a pretty good mood. That's
the one thing that's tough about golf. But then when you get to do, just things like this, and the tournament at the Wells Fargo is unbelievable. There's great crowds. The golf course is unbelievable, and just be able to play the weekend means that's step one, and then playing well on the weekend to move up the leaderboard step two. So we accomplished step one, and unfortunately with a little stumble at the end, but we're still in good shape. So
everyone out there who plays golf can certainly relate to finishing a good round. Well, I don't know what it's like to finish a good round badly, but I know what it's like to finish a round badly. I know in looking back over your career, I mean, you've had some very interesting moments, especially trying to get out here. Let's go back to one or two of them, because, I mean, you were this close to making it out here, and it didn't happen.
That was pretty tough. That was in Portland. It was the last Web.com tour event of this entire season. I was in the last group, and it was the last hole, and it was the last shot. I mean, it could not have been written up any differently, that it came down to the last shot I hit all season to make it to the PGA Tour or not. And long story short, I thought I had to make eagle in the last hole to guarantee my card, just the way the money worked out and the ties and all these different formulas, where in actuality I only needed to make birdie.
Right.
So I missed the putt, not knowing that was to go, which was unfortunate, because I'm not saying if I knew I would have made it. It almost made it a little bit easier to cope with it, because I didn't feel like I let myself down or I got this close and I failed. It was more of like a revenge kind of attitude that I had the next week, and ended up playing some of my best golf of my life. I knew I was playing great that week, so I just tried to forget about it and carry on the next week, and I played great and finished sixth. And
you've had some really nice finishes. I want to talk a little bit about your intersection with Georgia. I know you were this past Monday night in Athens for the ceremony honoring Billy Payne, certainly one of the most prominent names in all of golf, let alone the University of Georgia. You were at the championship, the SEC championship game, or the championship game?
I was at the SEC championship game.
And the Rose Bowl.
And the Rose Bowl.
So you're obviously a pretty serious fan.
I would go to every game if I could. Our schedule's a little tough to do that. But yes, I'm a diehard Georgia fan. I wish I was able to do more stuff, but every chance I get, I'm there.
And I know, because we've spoken to a number of other golfers and we're going to talk to Jason Dufner. We've talked to him before. We had Billy Horschel on the other day. That those of you who have played in the SEC have a pretty good rivalry going, or I'm not sure how to describe it on a family television network, but you guys give each other a pretty hard time, don't you?
Especially during the fall. It's a little bit low-key this time of year. But, I mean, after signing day, we were definitely giving them some grief, because, I mean, Georgia just absolutely dominated the recruiting season this year. So it was that was our spring little needle in them.
Okay, we know you can play golf, but we want to find out whether you can prognosticate, like everyone who calls on this show. So we're going to look at the Georgia football schedule here. This is Keith Mitchell prognosticating the Georgia football schedule. We're not going to spend a lot of time on some of these games. Austin Peay, I'll just move past. At South Carolina, that is a challenging game for the Dogs.
I don't like it being that early in the season. Last year we had a advantage pushing it back, but I don't see how Will Muschamp can keep up with us. So I'm just going to go ahead and say that out loud.
Ooh, I like this trash talking.
But
this close to the South Carolina border, just 3 miles away. We'll skip Middle Tennessee. At Missouri, Drew Lock, one of the better quarterbacks, coming back in the SEC.
Maybe if they had Chase Daniels back, or some players that I think Jeremy Maclin. Didn't Jeremy Maclin play at Missouri? If they had those two guys, they might have. But now we're going to beat them too.
Yeah, I don't want to remind you of the last time the Vols came to Athens. It ended on a Hail Mary by Josh Dobbs.
Should I remind you last time we were in Knoxville?
No, I was actually there. And, I remember it well, and I said goodbye to Butch Jones that day, a little earlier than some people. Okay, so we're going to move past Tennessee and Vanderbilt just for the sake of time.
Okay.
October 13th at LSU, tough game.
That's going to be interesting. I can't remember the last time we played LSU. It might have been in Athens. And it was a close game.
It was a really good game.
And that was a lot of fun. But, I mean, LSU, I've never been to Tiger Stadium, but I've heard it's a death trap. So that's a tough one.
Win or loss?
As a Georgia fan, I'm going to say win, but I want to say tie.
We're going to go with a win because we got two dogs ready to. Jacksonville, Florida.
We're going to beat Florida. They don't have the depth. They don't have anything right now. They're lost. So
I like this. Can you come back on Monday? We're going to go to the Auburn game. Auburn, we all know what happened this past year at Jordan-Hare Stadium. That was a rough game.
They're a good team. They're coached well, and they have a lot of athletes. So I think that and LSU are going to be the two games that decide our season.
So you're saying you're going to run the table because we know you're going to pick Georgia against Georgia Tech.
Yeah. Yes, we're going to run the table.
Going into Atlanta, SEC championship game, presumably against Alabama.
I mean, I feel like I can't say we're going to win every game, but we almost did last season, and we're going to be better than we were last season. We have everybody returning.
13-0.
So 13-0.
Keith Mitchell,
you heard it here first.
The Dogs to go to the college football playoff and win the SEC. Listen, I like one thing about you versus a couple of Georgia fans I see on hold is that you at least have a realistic approach to it. You're not just absolute. You realize that there are good teams out there. Maybe because you're a professional
I just said
athlete.
we were going 13-0. That's not very realistic, is it?
Well, but you didn't. You took your time to get there.
Okay.
You didn't just race down the road. So there we have it. Tomorrow and Sunday, you feel pretty good about the weekend here?
I do. The weather looks decent. It looks pretty good. It's been great already. The wind really makes that golf course tough. So if the wind blows, it's anybody's tournament. Anybody's tournament. I don't care if you're 2 over, 3 over. If you have 2 good rounds and the wind blows, you're going to move right up to the leaderboard.
So you're here for the weekend, and we appreciate it. We hope you'll come back.
Thank you.
This was really a lot of fun.
Thank you.
Keith Mitchell, our new prognosticator on the show. Great to see you.
Thanks, Paul.
We talked about the Dogs in the first segment with a Georgia golfer. Now we're going to talk about Georgia in terms of progress more closer to home with Chip Towers. Chip, always good to catch up. Reading some of your pieces recently about everything seems to be going the Dogs' way. Good afternoon, and tell us all about
it. Well, thanks, Paul. Well, not everything. Georgia finally had a loss in recruiting head-to-head this past week on a kid from about 40 miles down the road from Athens. But, yeah, by and large, things are going very, very well for Georgia and for Kirby Smart in particular. Just about got his salary doubled this week, and that was interesting to see. We knew something would be in the works for Kirby. The question was just kind of where they were going to end up sliding him in the SEC, and as it turns out, for now at least, it looks like he's going to be tied for third with Gus Malzahn, and Auburn's Gus Malzahn at $7 million a year. So there's a lot of money going around to be a football coach in college football, but in the SEC in particular, and Kirby's picked a good time to have a good season, I guess you could say.
Chip, considering the same guy's doing the negotiating for most of, if not all of the SEC coaches, maybe all but 2 or 3, how does this work? Because Kirby goes from a modest amount, modest by Saban standards, tremendous by most of our standards. And how do you land on $49 million over 7 years?
Yeah, that is interesting how they got. Well, as you alluded to, Jimmy Sexton is the agent of record for almost the entirety of the SEC. 11 of the 14 coaches by my count, and all of the top ones. And certainly it starts with Nick Saban. The question on Kirby, so he comes in his second year, wins the SEC championship, plays for the national title. So the question right away was, you couldn't stay where he was, which was 8th in the SEC last year, which was probably appropriate for a first-time head coach. But now he's won you something, and you gotta recalibrate that. So the real question for me, when we were discussing this coming in, is what does Georgia jump him all the way above Dan Mullen, who just got a $6.1 million deal with Florida? He's obviously a very experienced coach, but just arriving at a place that is considered, possibly a perennial national championship contender. And then Gus Malzahn, the commonality being there that neither one of them has won a national championship. Jimbo Fisher has won a national championship. Texas A&M brought him in for $7.5 million, and then Nick Saban's in a stratosphere of his own, obviously both financially and on-field accomplishments. So, as it turned out, Jimmy Sexton, I guess not wanting to upset, his good friend and longtime client Gus Malzahn, they got the exact same deal as far as we can tell. Now, we don't have details yet, but we know in general that 7 years, $49 million. That's a lot of money, and that's a good long contract as well.
Yeah, it really sounds good to me. Chip, let me ask you about Kirby because, I mean, the expectations are now ridiculous. I mentioned when we came back, we were in Athens about 2 weeks ago, and I felt something there. You've covered it a lot longer than I have, but I felt something I don't think I've ever felt in Athens. I mean, an attitude. I realize the schedule is fairly doable, but your thoughts on this team coming back, though, because everyone knows what has left. All we had to do was watch the draft.
Yeah, it's a massive, I don't want to say rebuild, but it's definitely going to be a significant reload for sure. I mean, Georgia's recruited extremely high, number 6, number 3, and number 1, the 3 classes that Kirby Smart has recruited. But, there's just really I don't know what you could put as an intangible value, not just on how a lot of those seniors played for Georgia in terms of, guys like Sony Michel and Nick Chubb, who two biggest, largest rushers in the history of FBS football, and Roquan Smith, who's a number 8 pick in the draft. All of that stuff. But the leadership is the real intangible thing. And, Kirby's talked about that ad nauseum through the spring, and maybe it's just Kirby getting his team ready. But, he just hadn't seen that. He hadn't located it. They're a young team overall. I mean, just in general, there's just not that many seniors, and there's not many upperclassmen who are playing prominent roles. And that can be a problem sometimes. You're right. The schedule, that's the thing. I'm vacillating a good bit on what I think Georgia can be in 2018. Fortunately, we have some time before we figure that out. But they have a great bunch of players ready to step into roles. But can they do all the special things that group did last year? That remains to be seen. That's a tall order for them to be asked to fill.
As you look at that schedule, Chip, and we've hashed it out a million times. I mean, you're at South Carolina, at Missouri, at LSU, Florida, Auburn, and Georgia Tech before the championship game. I mean, would you where would you rank the greatest danger? Would it be South Carolina or somewhere later in the season?
Yeah, I think it's right out of the box, Paul. I've said that from the beginning, and that's why, especially we're talking about a young team, right? And and I know South Carolina and the Gamecocks, it'll be 110 degrees in Columbia probably. The place will be packed out. At that point, the Gamecocks will believe in everything. And when that fan base believes and that program believes, that can be a powerful thing. So Georgia's got to go there on the road. And then, hey, don't discount that other Columbia, the 2 Columbias. I mean, Georgia's on the road at South Carolina and on the road at Mississippi before they ever come home to play a conference game. And, Missouri. And so, I think both of those, anytime you travel on the road, particularly as far as a trip as Missouri, Georgia's had good success there, but it's also had a pretty tough trip out there one time, and so have some other people. So, I think if they can get past those early hurdles, they might be able to gain some momentum and start realizing what their identity is. But until then, they're going to be walking in to Williams-Brice Stadium, I think, with a lot of questions and looking to get them answered there. It's a tough place to get your answers.
Chip Towers joining us from Dog Nation. Chip, always great to visit. Be well. We'll see you soon.
Thank you, pal.
Good stuff from Chip Towers about the dogs. It seems like we're always talking about the dogs. Welcome back to the program. It's been all dogs. So I look down at this list and think about this if you're home. Where would I go next?
You went to the right place. I know that.
That's correct. Good afternoon, Darriel.
Would you like to know, let me give you my predictions on Georgia's season, okay? 2 toughest games. They're going to be South Carolina, because we got to go there, and Muschamp will have them ready, and the SEC title game against Auburn. Because it's hard.
Always throwing a curveball.
Because it's hard to beat a team twice in the same season. And Auburn's going to be wanting payback from what has took place last season. I know that for a fact.
Hey, Darriel, why you hate Alabama?
No, well, it ain't I hate Alabama. It's just I go by the fact. You have to look at the facts, and the facts state that Auburn's going to have a good football team this year, right? But every year they have a good football team. Alabama can't beat them. Alabama has not beat them with Saban when they had a good football team. Not one time. And they're going to have a good football team this year, so you can have to go with Auburn.
Let me ask you a question. When was the last time that Auburn beat Nick Saban 2 years in a row? Do you remember?
I didn't say.
I'm just asking you a question.
I don't know.
I'm asking you a question.
Okay, never.
No, they have. 2007 they beat, 2007 that was.
I know Tuberville beat them 6 times in a row. I don't know who the coaches were, but he just rolled on them big time. Yeah, he rode Tide on her for 6 straight. But I'll tell you something. Here's the deal with Georgia and Alabama. Okay. One mistake, one loss on that roster, on that schedule, and I do not see how they can get into the playoffs because their schedule is so weak. I mean, they one loss and they're done.
Who says they're going to lose?
Well, I think Alabama will be undefeated. I tell you what, I don't think Tua is going to be. I wasn't as impressed as probably you were and all the Alabama fans. I thought the kid did a good job for the game to come in, but it ain't like he showed out some great quarterback or anything like that. I think the quarterback battle at Alabama is going to cost him.
He threw a walk-off touchdown pass, Darriel.
He threw a wide open receiver.
No, he wasn't wide open, Darriel. He wasn't wide open. He was wide open because Tua looked off the defender.
Well, we looked off the defender, right, and the safety pulled over there to cover his face. But that corner should never got beat by that freshman.
He did, Darriel.
That's just the way it goes. Well, yeah, he did. Okay, Paul, so guess what? That's over with. But I want to say this to Bamers, okay? What about Kirby Smart getting all that money? How much of that has he got to give Nick Saban, I wonder? Because if you hear the Alabama people, I wish there's 2 things I wish they would stop doing. I wish they would stop acting like Kirby Smart didn't know anything about football until he met Nick Saban. I think Kirby Smart was an all-SEC player. Nick Saban was a nobody as a player, okay? So, it ain't like he didn't know anything about football until he met Nick Saban. And I wish they was.
Let me ask you a question. Where do you think Kirby Smart learned about football?
I think Kirby Smart learned about football from the time he was a kid up to. Nick Saban had an impact, but it ain't all Nick Saban. Is my point.
Do you think he learned it? Do you think he learned it from his father?
I think. Well, he obviously so. His high school coach, where he was an all-SEC player.
Yeah.
And Jim Dolan, he knew some things before he met Nick Saban. He was all SEC. You just don't become that. You got to know how to play the game.
You know the old story, Darriel. Nick Saban taught Kirby everything Kirby knows, but he didn't teach.
But not everything Nick knows, right?
That's why he beat him.
That's what the Famers like to say, And one other thing I wish they would quit doing is comparing.
Darriel, may I interrupt? Because I feel like I don't see why not. I feel like we're friends. Is that fair? I'm not trying to. I feel like we have a good relationship.
I give you a hard time from time to time, but off the radio, no doubt about it, I got you back 110%.
But I'm concerned about you, Darriel, and I say this in the spirit of friendship.
About you.
What are you concerned about me about?
Because you never want to shut up, but go ahead, I'm listening.
No, I'm not going to say anything else.
No. Now you're
the next 3 minutes. The next 3 minutes are yours, Darriel.
Well, you know what? Guess what? I'm fixing to take a little test. Old boy has. I'm taking it this weekend, so we can go over that. Let me say, hold on, I ain't done. Let me say, I wish they would quit comparing themselves to the New England Patriots also, and this is why. Because they played New England would beat them 63-0. So you can't compare yourself with somebody like that. Now, before I get out of here, I want to say something to that little loudmouth out there in Arkansas. Okay? He came on here yesterday. He wasn't restricted.
John, do you want to jump in here for a second?
Darriel, slow down. My goodness, nobody can hear you.
He just said he's going to run me off there. I got to get this stuff in.
You got about 2 minutes.
All weekend long. So my chest.
Oh my goodness!
I got to get it off and get it off now.
Go ahead. Jeez.
He's going to come over here and smack Paul's butt big time.
Welcome to another hour on the 4th of May. The day before the 5th. If you have a 5th on the 4th, will you make it to the 6th? Anyway, let's get going here with more phone calls at 855-242-7285. Chip Towers Keith Mitchell joining us in hour number 1. Let's go right ahead and talk to Bo, who is up next. What's up, Bo? Not all at once, Bo. Clarence is up next in Atlanta. Go right ahead, Clarence.
Hey, what's up, Bo?
We're doing great. Thank you.
First of all, I'd like to thank Mark and John for calling out the ignorance and hypocrisy of another fan base, because people are like, we just started watching your show today, Paul. It's like some fan bases, I believe, think we just forget everything that we heard within one last year. You know, calls and stuff. No one ever complains about that. I wonder who we learned it from. But I wanted to comment on the Kirby Smart contract.
Yeah, what about it?
Some teams in my local area. I love the contract. I look at it this way, Paul. Jim Harbaugh can get $8 million. Kirby Smart better dang show be one of the top 5 football coaches.
You know, and Clarence, I want to stop right there. You just said something that's interesting. There was a time when administrators wondered if by giving a coach $1, $2, $3, $4, $5, $6 million would upset the fan base, because most of us fans are not well-to-do. I mean, we work hard. If we can afford tickets, we can. We get them. But nowadays, it's almost like, hey, my coach needs to make what their coach makes. Mm-hmm. And that's the issue for these athletic directors. I mean, it's just basically write a check. It doesn't matter, because I don't want my fan base to think that we're not paying our coach enough money. And that's how you get these high. I'm not, in Kirby's case, it's justified, but that's how you end up getting stuck paying the bill of someone like Butch Jones or someone else when you end up firing them, because you have to pay them an inordinate or an exorbitant amount of money. And when you get rid of them because they're no good, you're stuck. But it's fascinating to listen to fans be concerned what someone else is making and why their coach needs to make more. John is in Tennessee. You're on the air. Go right ahead.
Hey, Paul. How you doing today?
Okay, good afternoon.
I read an article earlier. John Parker Wilson, former Alabama quarterback, said that Jeremy Pruitt scares him at Tennessee. Now, my question to you is, how much more weight would it have carried if, say, someone like A.J. McCarron or Greg McElroy or somebody would have said something like that?
Well, I mean, I understand where you're going. I mean, Wilson was a good quarterback. He didn't win a championship like the other two did, but he did take Alabama to an SEC title game and an undefeated regular season, which I think was pretty significant. Frankly, I just think comments like that are not worth the paper they're printed on for this reason. I mean, what evidence do you have that Jeremy Pruitt is more and I've heard similar, but how can you justify a statement like that when we've already seen Kirby Smart win an SEC championship and we have no earthly idea what Jeremy Pruitt's going to look like as a head coach?
Yeah, I agree. It's a little early to be making assumptions like that, but thanks for taking my phone call.
Thank you. By the way, as far as what John Parker Wilson said, I don't want to be coming down on his statement, because I've heard other Alabama fans who know Jeremy make a statement like, I think he is going to be unbelievably good, but at this point, you have to go with what you know, and what we know is Kirby Smart is a fine coach. We don't know that about Jeremy Pruitt, and I'm not raining on his parade. You can hype him all you want, but he is still unproven. He's never coached he's never been a head coach in a game. Kirby Smart's coached in a national championship game. Chance is up next. Go right ahead.
Hey, Paul, what's up?
How are you, Chance?
I'm doing good. I'm just calling to talk to you a little bit about how Shea Patterson was declared eligible to play at Michigan this year, so that helps out Florida with Van Jefferson, who transferred from Ole Miss, and it's going to help us out a little bit because we've already been talking, a lot of media guys from the University of Florida have been talking about how our receiving corps could be a lot better with the addition of that guy. So with his experience helping us out, I think that maybe starting a true freshman, Emory Jones, might be a little more exciting for Florida fans than watching Kyle Trask or Felipe Franks drive down the field and get us a field goal in that first game against Charleston Southern.
I hear you. Well, I hope you're right. And by the way, let me add one more thing to what John Parker Wilson said, and I didn't think about this. Someone reminded me. I believe John Parker Wilson was at Hoover High School when Jeremy Pruitt was also there. So the context of that gives more weight to what John Parker said, I'm going to take away what I just got through saying about Pruitt, because you can make that statement about anyone, but in John Parker's case, there is some context. He has seen him, he has played for him, so I think the comment has a little more resonance than just some analyst like me going, blah 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 blah. That is poppycock. What Parker Wilson said makes a little more sense based on that. So. I did say that. Matt is up next in Texas. Hey, Matt, go right ahead.
Hey, Paul, how are you this afternoon?
Quite well. Thank you for the call.
All right. Well, just to liven things up, I thought you could get Jim, Larry, Darriel, and Drew on a slow day and have a little game of Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader?
Okay. Larry.
And I was thinking,
who else is in there? Larry.
Jim.
Oh, Drew. Yeah,
Jim.
And Darriel. First of all, I like Drew in that group.
Yeah, that's right. But to make it fair, you've got to have categories, right? So, history of Alabama football, history of Jim's athletic career, spelling, geography, and basic math. Who's your money on, Paul?
Jim from Tuscaloosa.
my money's on Drew, but you mentioned Jeremy Pruitt and Hoover, and when we talk about all the money these coaches are making and the pressure they're under, I kind of have to laugh, Paul, because pressure is you're the head coach in a 25,000 person Texas town. You make more than the superintendent of schools, and your job is to compete for a state championship every year. Everybody in town knows you. Everybody in town wants to tell you how to coach the defense. That's pressure. These guys making $7 or $8 million a year is not pressure, Paul.
I would agree with you, Matt. I'll never forget the great quote by the golfer Lee Trevino. Somebody asked him about making a putt to win the U.S. Open. He said, "Did you feel a lot of pressure?" He said, "No, pressure is when you got 3 kids at home and 1 on the way, and you need to make a 4-foot putt to win $100 so you can pay the bills. That's pressure, and because you have no money." And you're right. I don't believe when you make that kind of money, there's really much pressure. The only pressure that Kirby Smart or Nick Saban have, and I believe in both cases this next statement is accurate, is the pressure they put on themselves. That's how they succeed. The internal pressure to be better, to not be complacent. These are common themes that you hear from the very best. But no, they're not thinking about the money, and they don't care about the money. They never see that money. That money goes into their checking account, their bank account, whatever kind of account. And whether Kirby Smart has $1 million in there, $10 million, or $100, he's only thinking about the next thing he can do to make his program better.
That's right, Paul. And so if your money's on Jim, my money's on Drew, so let's get it going.
Well, you know why my money's on Jim, Matt?
Why?
Here's why. Because if you had Larry, Drew, Darriel, and Jim, and I asked the question, Jim's the only person you'd ever hear speaking. So he would just need to get one answer right. And Drew's a talker, but I don't think Drew could compete with Jim. So you with me on Jim?
Absolutely.
I'm going with Jim every time. Mike is up next in Georgia. Mike, welcome to our program. Good afternoon.
Hey, Paul. Thanks for having me on again.
Thank you.
Not to totally run this thing in the ground about the contracts, but anyway, when Kirby signed his contract, I was looking at it and I go, man, that's a lot of money. And then the same day I look and Matt Ryan for the Falcons signs a guaranteed $100 million contract, paying him $30 million a year, and I realized it's two different things. But I started thinking about it, and I said, actually, Kirby seems like a pretty good deal to me. So anyway, and also Ryan could go out there and be gone in 3 or 4 games next year. Be off the field and done forever. His money's guaranteed. I realize these coaches have a buyout if they're fired, but their money's not totally guaranteed.
Well, no, I mean their money is guaranteed for the most part, unless they get fired for cause. But listen, we're talking about money that most of, if not all of us here, are not familiar with. It's a game. It's a status symbol. It's just the way it is. And it's like, why does a corporate CEO make $40 or $50 million? Because the guy next door makes $40 or $50 million. I mean, you're going to pay the president of Coke less than the president of Pepsi?
Right. I understand what you said. Well, I just think, like Nick Saban, what he makes, that's a deal. I mean, for Alabama, the University of Alabama, the income he generates,
sure, absolutely.
For the university, I mean, I just think it's a deal. And even Harbaugh, who's been I would think, a failure as far as succeeding at Michigan is wins and losses, but he still has generated so much publicity and I would assume income, donations, and so forth for the university. Even he may not be the worst deal in the world.
No, you're right. By the way, Harbaugh has not been that big of a failure. The last 2 years have been average. First two were pretty good, but the money that he has brought into it's all. Universities. A president of a university doesn't run the university. He's a fundraiser. He goes around and he meets with people to try to bring more money in. That's how they survive. And when you have a successful football program, more people want to be associated and affiliated with that university. We are up against a break. 855-242-7285. Love to hear from you. More guests to come.
I just saved hundreds of dollars by switching to Geico. I feel like a whole new person.
Disclaimer, you will not become a whole new person. This is impossible. You might be able to join a gym or diet program, buy a new wardrobe, get hair implants, but your DNA and physical form will remain the same. Geico waives any and all liability if you attempt to become a new person, except a cyborg. If you choose to become a half-human, half-cybernetic organism with lasers for eyes, the Geico legal team would be cool with that, because, quote, laser eyes are pretty sweet. Pew, 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 end quote.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
If you want to give us a ring, you can do so now at 855-242-7285. Let's go back to the calls. And I think we have Bo back. Bo, go right ahead.
Hey, Paul. How you doing today?
Very well. Thank you for the call.
Thank you for letting me get through. Hey, I just wanted to make a point. I'm an Alabama fan, but I'm not your typical obnoxious Alabama fan. But we've been getting a lot of criticism this year about opening with Louisville. Well, I would like to bring up a point that since Nick Saban's been there, every season consistently, with the exception of 11 when we opened with Kent State, we have opened with ranked bowl-type teams, like your Michigans, your Wisconsins, Clemson, back when Coach Bowden was there, and spanked all of these teams. I mean, he's undefeated in his openers. And, it's been dog day afternoon, Georgia. Georgia's open with Austin Peay. They got Middle Tennessee in the middle of their schedule. They've got UMass at the end of their schedule. So before we deify Georgia, let's kind of compare schedules and say, hey, theirs isn't that great either.
True. And sometimes you're victimized by your schedule. I mean, I think 2 years from now or next year, one of the years, Alabama plays Duke. Some years Duke has a pretty good football team. Some years they don't. Louisville would have been a great opener last year. Year before, and maybe the year before that. We all thought Florida State was going to be a great opener last year. So you don't know, but you're right. Saban has always played anyone that comes along. Georgia did it last year. That in the second week of the season, they did play Notre Dame at Notre Dame. That was pretty significant. Thank you for the call. I do appreciate it. Greg is in Columbia. You're on the air. Go right ahead.
Hello?
Go right ahead, Greg. You're on the air.
Yeah, I got a statement there about all this Georgia stuff. Their season's going to be over week 2.
You think so?
Yes. South Carolina will beat them.
Reason being?
They exceeded the expectations last year. Deebo Samuel will be back. Bentley will be way better than he's been. Georgia's lost Michelle and Chubb. And Muschamp's defense, always on point.
Those are good reasons.
And also, we lost Hayden Hurst, but you got Crosby coming back. Yeah, we're good.
Good. I just marked that down as a win for the Dogs. You with me, Randy? Yes. Good. Brandon is up next. What do you say, Brandon?
Hey, what's going on, Paul? How you doing today?
All good. Thank you for the call.
You're welcome. Is it mint juleps this weekend for you or margaritas?
I think I'll go mint juleps tomorrow in honor of the Derby. Now, in the morning, I'll be drinking margaritas in honor of Cinco de Mayo. And I'm not sure what I'm doing tomorrow night, assuming I'm still upright.
I hear what you're saying. Sounds like a good weekend. I want to get into this a little deeper. I had kind of been wanting to talk about what your last caller discussed, so I'm just going to get down to it. Georgia. January the 1st, Paul, of 2019, the Georgia Bulldogs will be in the Sugar Bowl. They're going to finish as SEC East champs. You can tell them to go on and book their rings. Maybe they'll get a discount. But I want to get into that Week 2 game that your caller just talked about. Kirby Smart's losing a lot of key players on his defense, I think 4 or 5. Also, that 9,000 combined yards or whatever it was for Sony and Chubb. And kind of what I'm wanting to get into, Paul. You got a new transfer coming into South Carolina. He's going to liven up the secondary. Deebo Samuels is definitely back. Bentley's been pretty good. Opening up with Austin Peay didn't really do you any favors. And then you're going into Week 2, probably going to be the most watched game in college football around the world that day in Williams-Brice Stadium. I don't know, Paul. Alabama did this one time with an early conference game against Ole Miss, and they got spanked, and they were supposed to be favored. And I think it happened again the year after. So I just want the Georgia Bulldogs to realize one thing, not to catch chickens before they hatch. But I do want to give a chance to Darriel. I'll give him a bet on the phone. The bet is, after he loses to South Carolina, he can sing or read the Alabama fight song. I'll do the same for him. Paul, have a great weekend.
Thank you very much. Good to hear from you. Nick is next.
Oh, Finebaum. Oh.
Yes, Nick.
Well, don't sound so depressed, Paul.
Well, are you happy about this call, Randy?
No.
Well, why you got to bring Randy and Hayes in, whoever?
John, you happy about hearing from Nick?
Hey, Nick, it was Randy the cameraman, it wasn't me. Mark's here today.
Well, I just heard him. Are you happy about the call, Randy? He said no.
And to answer your question, Paul, not really.
Nick, listen, you've got to do something to make us more excited when you call.
Well, the only thing
maybe take some medicine.
No, I ain't on no meds or nothing, Paul. I ain't on medicine, so.
Well, no, Nick. I think we need to take. I mean, you're fired. You're the same old Nick. Can we start over again, Nick?
Sure.
Okay.
He's back on hold, Paul. Go ahead.
In honor of the golf today, I bought myself a mulligan walking in. Heading down toward the bottom of the hour here. Nick is next. Nick, how are you?
Hey, I'm fine, Paul.
Hey, Nick, how are you, man?
I'm great. How are you?
It is so good to hear from you.
It sure is. I was wondering if y'all was going to answer my call again ever.
I don't know when I've ever looked forward to a call more than this, Nick.
I know, Paul. I mean, you just called me back. I've been on that twice. Outstanding. Hey, Paul, I want to ask you something.
What did he say?
Let me ask you something, Paul.
Yeah, go right ahead, Dick. Whatever you want, Nick. It's your show, man.
Hey, I just want to comment on Darriel's call that I heard earlier today. You know, when he was bad-mouthing Alabama as usual. I think he's still delusional, but does he actually think Alabama's football team's going to just shut down this year coming up and not do nothing?
I don't know, Nick. What do you think?
I think Darriel's delusional, like you always told him. He's delusional.
He is delusional. You're right.
All right, Paul, and the other thing I wanted to ask you last week or a couple of weeks ago, and you said my calls were boring. And
no, your calls are great, Nick.
Well, thank you, Paul. Thank you, Paul.
Randy, have you ever heard a better call than this?
I'm so excited I can't stand it.
Tell Randy. I like Randy and Browns. We're on there. I like Hayes and Kubiak. I love them down. They're great.
That's okay. I've got hot takes.
Well, anyway, Paul, let me ask you just one question.
Okay.
And it's a football question, Paul.
Oh, well, then I'll struggle to answer it, but go ahead.
All right. Out of the 5, Alabama players that signed the free agency, the undrafted free agencies, which one do you think will be the best out of the 5 or, be the best?
Okay, let's go over the 5. We have, is J.K. Scott one of the 5?
No, sir. Green Bay Packers signed him.
Oh, was he drafted or a free agent?
He was drafted, Paul.
Okay, so
he wasn't a free agent.
Okay, I'm sorry. I quit watching after the first day. I'll
give you the free agents, Paul. I got a list here. I'll give them to you if you don't
hit me
have
with your best shot.
Well, J.C. Hassenauer, he got free agent deal with the Falcons. Okay. Tony Brown with the Chargers, free agent. Robert Foster with the Bills, free agent. Levi Wallace to the Bills.
Levi Wallace is the answer.
I agree with you, Paul. That you got the right answer.
I like Levi Wallace.
Well, what about Cam Sims? He also went to the Redskins as a free agent.
Well, I like Levi Wallace.
Hey, Paul, we got to get to a break.
Hey, John and Mark. Where are you guys?
I'm sorry, what?
What?
Are you guys, what? Did we wait?
Is Nick still on the phone?
Yeah, I'm still on there.
Oh, sorry, Nick.
I see you.
Break down Tony Brown signing with the Chargers, Nick. Paul, go to break.
Tony Brown with the Chargers. I like Tony Brown.
Hey, Nick. Let me say this to you in all sincerity. Thank you for calling the show.
Absolutely.
Well, you're welcome, Paul, and I enjoy calling.
I'm glad you do because this is where we're doing from now on. The caller, we don't exist anymore. By the way, we're showing for those listening on radio. This is a shot from Dreamland. Is this in Tuscaloosa? There's two. There's one in Birmingham. I think this is Tuscaloosa. The Finebaum show's on at Dreamland.
Wow.
It's probably on everywhere right now, except this studio where all I see is golf. Welcome back. We are happy that you are with us on a Friday afternoon. Dave Bartoo with us. He was here a couple weeks ago, and we really had a good time. He deals in numbers and analytics and quite a bit to digest. Dave, welcome back to the show. Back because we thought you were so fantastic. We said on the spot, can we get this guy back? You made so many interesting comments. Welcome back.
Well, thank you very much for having me back. And John can track me down anywhere. Heck, I'm driving down the highway right now with a forklift and a trailer, and he tracked me down to do this again. So I'm always looking forward to it. We going to talk some more coaching?
Listen, I mean, there's 1,000 things that we could talk to you about, but, and I'm not even sure where to start. But the last time we talked about projections, I do want to ask you, John, let me ask you about one school in particular that seems to be getting a lot of love, and that is Mississippi State. New coach, inheriting a very good situation, a lot of great defensive players, obviously a quarterback, Nick Fitzgerald. But some of the Vegas numbers are not all that great on them. In the new ESPN FPI, they're ranked 16. Where are you on the Bulldogs?
Well, ranked 16. So somebody's projecting them to go 10-2. That's basically what they're saying, right? I mean that is a huge number for Mississippi State. Now you'd mentioned Vegas. Do you have some lines? Do they have some early over/under lines on that right now, Paul? They running about 7 to 8. I'm guessing.
That is the differential. Yeah, that's where I can't quite wrap my arms around it. But then what do I know?
Well, okay. Remember, I try to tell stories with numbers, and so when I look at a schedule, we're talking three main things: coaching, where a football game is played, and how much talent a team has. At least in my opinion, by the numbers. Okay. So when you look at Mississippi State, I think the first thing you got to pump your brakes on. It's a whole new coaching staff, okay? I mean, if things are better this year than they've been in the past, you got to tip your hat to two guys. Number one, Dan Mullen, for leaving the cupboard absolutely full and having a great culture. And number two, Moorhead coming in and making it seamless and actually bumping it up. Because if they go 10-2, okay, Mississippi State going 10-2 with their schedule right now, Joe Moorhead's season will be better than anything Dan Mullen did at Mississippi State. So that would just be absolutely amazing right there. So I did look at their schedule and started just kind of adding up, okay, wins, losses, talent, and so forth. And that's why I asked lines. And if somebody said, hey, pick a number, I would say over and under 7.5 wins. So, the idea that they're a top 25 team, and I get everybody's excitement in Stark Vegas about Moorhead, about Shoop, and the talent that they have there. But it is still a vicious schedule, as it really kind of always is in the SEC West for them physically. And you have a whole new coaching staff. So, for anybody who wants to say, hey, this is a top 25 team, 9 or more wins, I have no problem fading that all day.
So okay. Let me get. Where are you going? Where are you going to rest? I mean, how many wins?
Where I'm going to rest, at, like I said, is looking at this. I will take them at 7.5 wins. And if push comes to shove, you want a whole number, I'll go 7-5 with Mississippi State. I'll push it down a little bit. I like the higher.
Oh my goodness!
But I don't like the schedule and the transition.
Dave. You're going 7-5 with Mississippi State after all these lofty expectations. That's incredible.
Well,
but that's fine. Like listen, we just stamped it. You're done. We'll move on to another school.
He's going to hang up on me now.
Well, no, I'm going to go to the next school and hope you keep going.
Yeah.
Okay, so Dan Mullen leaves all these great players behind that many of us think will be very good. You point out the obvious: new coaching staff, maybe not so good. 7-5. Dan Mullen taking over a program that went 4-8. We know he can do better than that, but how much better?
Oh, absolutely. I think he can do much better. Now, obviously there's a transition time in terms of what he can do with that program. You look at where Florida recruits at, the talent that they have there. I don't think there's any bigger apologist than people saying the cupboard's bare. I hate that excuse more than anything. In college football when you're talking about coaching staff. So, I think Florida has a lot of talent there. Mullen, obviously, from an organizational standpoint, did a great job with Mississippi State. He's probably the best available, in my opinion, best available coach on the board for Florida at that time. So I think the hire itself was very good. Now, as for offensive and defensive coordinator, Dan's going to call the plays. I think there's, with Grantham, he's there right now. So I think there's room for improvement going forward in those two guys in terms of their play calling. But with Florida, given their talent, given them being in the East, we should really expect to see a very, very quick turnaround time for this program, even though McElwain, in his years at Florida, had the program in a pretty good decline while he was there.
So where do you land?
Oh, man. Now, that's one schedule I didn't look at. I
will read it to you. I'm going to give you the big games because some are just not worth talking about. Charleston Southern, Kentucky, Colorado State. At Tennessee.
Win.
At Tennessee.
At Tennessee. Oh, coin flip there. We'll go Tennessee in that one.
At Mississippi State.
Got to win that one. So we're at, what are we at? We're at 4-1.
LSU at home.
Win, 5-1.
At Vandy.
6-1.
Georgia.
6-2.
Missouri at home. South Carolina at home. Idaho at home.
7-2, 8-2, 9-2.
At Florida State.
At Florida State. We'll take a loss there. So you're looking at 9-3. New head coach. We'll subtract a game. I'll go 8-4 for Florida.
That's pretty fair. I like the way you just dropped that game at the end.
Well, you have a new head coaching staff, and a lot of people really, just like Mississippi State, a lot of people really underestimate that transition. Now, historically, when you look at all new head coaches, in terms of their first year versus their talent schedule expectation, I see an average of -1 game. So,
I get it. No, I get it. I want to give you another one, and this is interesting because they're coming off of a miserable year. They were 0-8 in the SEC. John Parker Wilson, who had Jeremy Pruitt as one of his coaches on the defensive side when he was in high school, said earlier that he thinks Jeremy Pruitt. He's more concerned about Jeremy Pruitt as an Alabama fan than he is Kirby Smart. So I'm going to give you Tennessee's schedule in a second. Similar situation, brand new coaching staff, a lot of changes, not a lot of talent, but a very difficult schedule. It begins in Charlotte against West Virginia.
Oh, my goodness gracious. What a terrible thing to kick off there. But, something, they're playing a basketball school. That's great. So you got Will Greer and an underperforming head coach in Holgerson. I'll take Tennessee to win that thing. They'll probably be underdogs in that. That's just straight up W upset alert week 1 for Tennessee.
First big upset of the season. East Tennessee State, UTEP, throw away those games. Florida at home. I think you've already called that game, haven't you?
Yeah, I said they'd win that football game at home. So now we're looking at 4-0.
This is an unbelievable start for Tennessee. 4-0. No one would see this other than you. At Georgia, at Auburn, Alabama.
Loss.
At South Carolina.
Loss.
So 4 straight losses.
Right. The big one is that South Carolina one, Paul. That's the big one because you have pretty even talent there and pretty comparable coaching. That's really a big coin flip game for Tennessee and South Carolina. So we're at 4-4 now.
Charlotte, Kentucky and Missouri at home, and at Vanderbilt.
WWW. So now we're at 8-4 minus a game. We're looking at 7-5.
I like the way you do this.
Right? I mean, that's where we're at. We're at 7-5. So we just predicted all of Tennessee's games.
Okay, we're going to give you one more because this program really thinks a lot of itself right now, and that is South Carolina. The schedule is very interesting because of the second game of the year. Coastal first game, second game at home. It might be 150 degrees at Williams-Brice when Georgia comes there September 8th.
Oh, you got to take Georgia in that one.
Okay.
I know they're full of themselves, maybe full of themselves, and rightfully so. You know, they had a good transition from Spurrier, but to me the talent gap is just too far apart right there, as is the offensive-defensive coordinator pairing.
Okay, Marshall next, then the 2 games at Vanderbilt, at Kentucky, 2 home.
WWW, yep.
Missouri at home.
W.
A&M at home.
Whoa, my goodness! They get A&M at home. There's a huge coin flip game there. The numbers would say take South Carolina at home.
Tennessee at home.
We talked about that one. Take South Carolina at home.
At Ole Miss, at Florida.
At Ole Miss loss. At Florida loss.
Chattanooga, and then at Clemson.
W, and then there's a loss there. So what are we looking at? 8-4.
Florida loss, Clemson loss, Ole Miss. Yeah, 8-4.
Okay, so we're looking at 8-4 now. We got to look at the coach effect of Muschamp because for his career, he's been, well, let's say subpar. Mama said, got something nice to say, don't say it at all. So we'll just call him subpar. But the back of my mind says mostly terrible. So you're talking -1 game there. I think South Carolina. If I'm Vegas and I'm setting the number, probably 6.5, 7. I'll go win total 7 on South Carolina for the year.
South Carolina goes 7-5 with Dave. Man, you have made some friends here tonight. Dave, we got your number. We'll be calling you again because we're not done yet. Thanks so much for your time.
You know where I'm at, buddy. Thank you for having me on.
Dave Bartoo. I mean, this guy is become one of our favorite guests. I mean, he doesn't give, could, should. He likes. And then he goes 9-3. I'll lose one more game, 8-4. Glad you are here, and let's continue with more phone calls at 855-242-7285. Steve is in Florida, and you are on the air. Go right ahead.
Hey, thanks, Paul. You doing okay today?
I am. Thank you very much.
Listen, do you remember that LSU-Alabama national championship game in 11?
I sure do.
Do you remember after the game what Les Miles did for his players?
What did he do?
Well, he had them some championship rings made up.
Oh, I do remember that.
Second nationally. And I was just thinking maybe Darriel and some of the Georgia people might want to consider the same thing,
I'm willing to bet you that Kirby Smart does not do that.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think also, Darriel, does he realize that Saban is at Alabama 4-0 against Georgia at this point? So, anyway.
Well, Saban did lose to Georgia his first year.
At Alabama?
Oh, yes, in overtime.
Was that with Marino? That's right. You're correct. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
He's 4. All right. Thanks, Paul. Have a great day.
Thank you. Ed is next from Connecticut.
Good afternoon, Paul.
Hey, Ed.
Things going?
What's up, bud?
How things going down there? Hello?
Yeah, Ed, how are you?
I'm fine. I'm doing good. Just came from the doctor.
Oh, good.
And he sees some most definite improvement.
Well, that is good news.
And that is good news, of course, with Lyme disease. I'm still going for these shots every day. Not shots, actually. It's a transfusion. And I'm hopeful. I'm definitely very happy with the Yankees this year.
Oh, yeah. Go Yankees.
They're looking good. That they're very short on pitching. And they're going to have to do a little bit.
What about Matt Harvey getting sent down to the minors?
Well, nobody's going to take him.
Yeah, nobody wants him.
The kid has a big, he came from the same high school. He came from the same high school my daughter graduated from. And,
it's a good connection.
Most people up here remember him. But he just got the big head. I don't care what anybody says.
Yeah.
Matt Harvey got very popular too young.
Yeah, that's what happened to me.
Well, I can understand that.
Yeah, now look at me.
Oh, well.
Twilight of my career, talking to you.
Well, like I say, it's been beautiful here.
I heard yesterday it was 92
degrees up here.
92 in Manhattan, 90 on the coast in Connecticut. I mean, what's going on here? It's hotter there than it is here.
Global warming.
Well,
I'm still not moving to Connecticut, no matter what you ask me.
Well,
Ed, you continue the road to recovery. We will see you soon. Welcome you back here, and delighted to welcome to our studio for the first time Jason Dufner. We've had him on before, and it is so good to see you. The former PGA champ, you're defending at Memorial in a couple of weeks, and you're doing pretty well at the Wells. How's it going?
Good. Having a good week here. Enjoy coming on the show, listen to you occasionally when I'm in the car, cruising around. So it'll be fun. We'll have a little fun, talk some sports.
We were giving you a little bit of a hard time about your hat, and then everybody's wearing Cavs, but I forgot you're born in Cleveland, so you're at least entitled to it versus the rest of the front runners.
Yeah, my support is fairly legit because I've been through all the rough seasons as a Cleveland sports fan. So it's fun to watch somebody like LeBron, and I'm lucky to have that he's playing for the Cavs now again, and can enjoy him and what they're doing. Obviously, last night was pretty special to watch.
That's incredible. And, of course, Baker Mayfield now a member of the Browns as well.
That's a tough one for me. I quit the Browns about 5 or 6 years ago. So I hope for the city of Cleveland and the fans, I consider it a football town, NFL town. Hopefully they can turn it around with Baker. Obviously, they've been looking for a quarterback. That's such a key component to the success in the NFL. So I'm hoping for the city they can turn it around, but I don't really follow the Browns as much as I used to.
Well, before we get, I think it was about a year ago we talked to you, not long after your foundation tournament, and I know that I think it was earlier in the week.
We did on Monday.
A lot of big names that came down to Auburn. Talk a little bit about that before we get going.
Yeah, we have the foundation in Auburn, Alabama. So what we do is we feed about 1,300 kids every week on the weekends. And Monday we had our big fundraiser deal. So we had a lot of the guys from the PGA Tour, Jordan Spieth, Justin Thomas, myself, Gary Woodland, some of the former Auburn players like Takeo Spikes and Ronnie Brown and Jason Campbell and Bruce Pearl was there. Come out, support, raise some money, play a little scramble golf event, and that pretty much gets us to where we need to run our programs and do what we do right there in Lee County.
Talking to Jason Dufner, and I remember it was a couple of years ago, we had Coach Malzahn on. He had just come back from the British Open where he had hung out with you as much as you can hang out with somebody competing in the British Open, but your relationship with the school is very close.
Yeah, it's really close. I still live there. Sports are a big part of my life, being a professional athlete, and then also just enjoying sports. So when you live in that college town, you kind of live and breathe what's going on in the different seasons. Coach Malzahn's a big golfer, big golf fan, so it's kind of been that way since he got there. As the offensive coordinator, we stayed in touch a little bit the year he was gone to Arkansas State. I was kind of lobbying, petitioning for him to come back when we were changing. So, we've been close. He went over to the British Open with me a couple of years ago. He doesn't get much time off. He's pretty locked in on that football stuff most of the time. But that was a good experience for him, and he gives me a lot of great experiences because, I love college football. Going to SEC school, you don't really have a choice not to love it. So to be involved with it a little bit and be behind the ropes a little bit is a lot of fun for me.
And, Jason, at the end of our segment, we're going to have you look at the Auburn schedule. Keith Mitchell, the Georgia golfer, was here earlier, and we'll tell you how he picked. But you can imagine he went all Georgia, including the Auburn game. So we'll save that for them. But I do want to talk about your golf career because it's always a cliche to say that winning a major is a life-changing event. The year before you won, you were in a playoff, so you were that close to understanding it. And then the next year, almost 5 years ago in 2013, you won. And to ask you how it changed your life, I guess would be a familiar question, but I would be interested in what impact it had on you and what it still does.
Yeah, I think, all the good things that come with it, the exemptions, the money that comes with it, the endorsements, all those things, I think didn't change me too much. I think the thing that changed most for me is once I accomplished that, and those were things that I wanted to accomplish as a little kid, it was almost an end game for me there for a while. And I was like, well, what's next? I never had these thoughts about I want to be the best golfer in the world or I want to win X amount of tournaments or every major. My goals were always to do it professionally, to earn income, win on the PGA Tour, and win a major. And once I had accomplished all those things, it was hard for me to kind of sort through and figure out, well, which way does the road go now? And I've struggled with that, still to this day at times about, what is my motivation? How do I keep my focus? What's next for me? Because at a young age, 35, I had accomplished everything that I thought that I could go out to accomplish. So that was the toughest thing for me, and still is, I think, in my career now, is where do I find that motivation? Where do I find the focus? Where do I find the drive to be successful? Because out here the lines are really thin. What determines, winning, losing, making the cut, missing the cut, and all these little things add up, to have that drive and that focus, I think, is what changed the most for me.
And it's extraordinary because you're one of the best golfers in the world. That's obvious. But dealing with the reality of, and I don't know how thin that line is. You can't see it with the naked eye.
No, it's pretty razor thin between good and bad out here.
How do you approach it? Because you win tournaments. You're considered a threat every week, but then you think about the very best that has ever played, and one of them is out there this week. He probably barely making the cut. Do you want to be that? Because it almost seems like you check out on the rest of your life to go after that.
Yeah, I agree. That's another thing I struggle with is golf everything to my life, and I got to figure out, kind of find the balance, so to speak. The better I am at balancing, the better I can play. And like you said, we don't win very often, so you got to be good at losing, which is hard. I always tell a lot of people if you win 2% of the time in golf, you're probably going to be in the Hall of Fame, honestly.
That's amazing.
And that's a really low percentage. And, the other thing is the difference between playing well and playing bad is very small. Like this week, I think I played with a guy that the first 2 days, Gary Woodland. He probably did 92% of the things really well this week for 36 holes. So he did 8% bad, and he's going to miss the cut. So you're looking at a really, really high success rate, pass-fail, to be good. And it's not, you don't have to bat 300, in golf. If you're batting 300, you're going home on Friday every week. I promise you that. In basketball, it's 45% success rate is really, really elite. Football is 80, 90. In golf, it's like 95 plus is elite.
What is you've alluded to some of it, but what is the most challenging thing every day? Some weeks you're off and you can separate it, but when you're in a tournament, you've got this week at Quail, you've got next week at Players. You're starting to get in some big events, the Memorial leading up to the U.S. Open.
Right.
Is every week different, or is it the same routine?
The routine you want to keep as consistent as you can, but every week is completely different. Day to day is different on how you feel, how the weather changes. Different variables. We're not playing on the same court or field every day. Even today we played the same course, but they change tee boxes, they change hole locations, the wind could change, the conditions can change. So we play a sport that's played on the biggest field in all of sports. We try to get the smallest ball in all of sports into the smallest target of all of sports.
Really easy.
And it's outside. So it's extremely challenging. It's extremely difficult. Yesterday I had a great day. I felt really good. Today I came out a little slow and it wasn't going as well, and I'm wondering, what's the difference? I'm not really sure, but as a golfer, you got to figure it out, get through it, and live to fight for the weekend. So it's a challenging game. And the other thing is we don't have any teammates. It's a lonely game, right?
No, it is a lonely game. And it's so interesting to hear you talk about that, because I know everyone watching and listening goes, man, to be out there. But I've seen you guys at 5:45 in the morning with lights brought in just so you could get ready for a 7 o'clock tee. There's a lot of money at it, but there's a lot of pressure too.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of great things about playing golf professionally, but there's a lot of sacrifice. There's a lot of compromise. There's a lot of self-doubt, even in personal life sometimes, that carries over that makes it difficult. But I can tell you, when you're in that competition, if you're a competitive person, and I feel like I am, like last week we finished second in a team event, that competitiveness is the reason why you make those sacrifices and you do the things that you do to try to be elite and play well.
We're going to let you get going in a second. Before you go, we're going to make it easy for you.
We're going to do some football.
We're going to talk about football for just a second. Keith Mitchell was in here. He picked the Dogs to go 13-0. So we're going to go down the schedule. And by the way, this Auburn schedule, I'm sure you've seen it.
Oh yeah,
it is a bear.
It always is. At least Clemson's off the schedule this year.
But it's not that much better. Washington may not be second in the country, but they're going to be in the top 6. So we're going to start with that game in Atlanta.
I'll take Auburn on that one. We haven't had the best history in Atlanta the last couple games, but
just 2 straight losses.
It is a team from out west that we usually have some pretty success against those guys.
We'll skip ahead the home game against LSU. Auburn should be favored.
Yeah, I'll take Auburn again. I think we can get them, especially after the way things went down last year, and LSU always seems to have some question marks at quarterback.
So I'm going to assume you go Arkansas, Southern Miss. October 6th, a tricky game, even though Auburn has really beaten State badly the last couple of years. That game is in Starkville.
Yeah, a lot of question marks, I think, with Mississippi State, new coach. I was excited to watch Dan Mullen head over to Florida. Maybe that'll make things a little bit easier for us in Starkville, but I'm going to go with us winning the first 6.
Yeah, 6-0 going to the home game against Tennessee. We'll go ahead and chalk that up as a win. At Ole Miss.
Yeah, that'll probably be another win. Obviously, they've had some coaching changeover and some problems off the field.
Exactly.
So I'm excited those Mississippi teams might be down a little bit more than they have been. They made it tough in the West.
I'm going to say A&M. Okay, it's going to come down to 2 games here, and you know where I'm going. I don't know where your schedule is, but I bet you're going to try to see these games if humanly possible. Yep. November 10th at Athens.
I'm gonna say we're gonna split those 2.
Okay.
I'm not gonna go either way, but I think we can get one of the 2. Those are both tough games, obviously, to end. So I'm gonna go 11-1.
Okay.
Ish.
If you now here's where it gets interesting, though. If you lose to Georgia and beat Alabama, you'll be in Atlanta.
Probably playing Georgia again. So that happens that way all the time.
You can take your pick.
So I don't know.
We'll go 11-1.
11-1.
You got far more important things to worry about than trying to figure out the Auburn schedule right now. But 11-1 sounds like a good. That is unlike your compatriot Keith Mitchell, who just
blitzed.
He didn't even look at the schedule. He said 13-0 SEC championship,
56-3 every game.
So I mean,
blowout.
You're a realist,
because it works that way in college football.
Jason, I can't thank you enough. A fascinating conversation to get inside what you deal with every week. And we
Thanks
really
for your time.
Appreciate you coming
yes,
up.
Yes, sir.
I just saved hundreds of dollars by switching to Geico. I feel like a whole new person.
Disclaimer, you will not become a whole new person. This is impossible. You might be able to join a gym or diet program, buy a new wardrobe, get hair implants, but your DNA and physical form will remain the same. Geico waives any and all liability if you attempt to become a new person, except a cyborg. If you choose to become a half-human, half-cybernetic organism with lasers for eyes, the Geico legal team would be cool with that, because, quote, laser eyes are pretty sweet. Pew, 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 end quote.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
And welcome back. And I have to say, man, was I impressed with Jason Dufner. Obviously, I've been a fan for a long time, and we've interacted occasionally, but what an interesting story there about someone who has reached the mountaintop of his sport, but still searching. Really revealing. You don't get that often from people about themselves and their own concerns or doubts. Fascinating. Really appreciate that. Let's get back to the calls at 855-242-7285. We have really had a good show. And Colby is in Little Rock. What do you say, Colby?
Paul, how is my main man doing today?
Quite well. Thank you for the call.
Awesome. You know, one of my favorite quotes, Paul, got to be from the Nature Boy, Ric Flair. To be the man, you got to beat the man. And when I think of that quote or hear that promo from Ric Flair back in the day, there's one person that I think of when I hear that quote, and it's got to be Paul Finebaum. You know, we've been, you know, you guys have been talking throughout the week about, you know, contracts with head coaches, specifically Kirby Smart, 7-year, $49 million. And since Paul Finebaum is the man and he's beat everybody that's coming his way successfully and victoriously, I don't really care how much money Kirby Smart is making. What I want to see is 7-year, $49 million Paul Finebaum. That's what I want to see, buddy.
Well, that is around the corner.
It's true, my friend. It's true. So I've got a hypothetical question, and then one more question following that, and here it is. What's more likely to happen? Nick Saban going to give it one more time around in the NFL, or Pete Carroll coming back to the college football scene, or none of that's going to happen?
I'm going to go with none of it. I don't think there's any way Saban at this point. There was a time, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, I thought Saban might get a taste of it. The Giants, I think, were interested briefly, but Saban has slammed the door.
Were the Colts interested at one point?
I think the Colts were a candidate as well, because Saban let it be known if he ever went back to the NFL, he would need a quarterback. But I just don't think I don't think that's in the cards anymore. I think Pete Carroll, I mean, if it ended ugly in Seattle, and who's to say it will or won't, he could probably be lured back to college.
Look, I'm a big Raiders fan. I never thought in a million years John Gruden would come back.
No,
so
I didn't
we'll see what happens, right? And here's my second question. Just kind of personal. I'd love to know, what are your top 3 or your personal favorite? Look, you know a lot about sports. What are some of your favorite sports movies? And if I could summarize you, Paul, in a movie, it's got to be The Greatest Showman. And if I could summarize Desperate Darriel in a movie, it's got to be that 1995 classic, Clueless. Anyways, thank you so much, Paul. I appreciate you as always.
I'm going to think about the movie. I mean, Caddyshack cannot be the right answer, I know, but it was funny. I saw it not long ago. Anyway, let's get back to the calls at 855-242-7285 and talk to Ben in Arkansas. Ben, you're on the air. Welcome to the show on Friday.
Paul, greetings and kudos from Razorback country, where we're cautiously optimistic, but we're not looking for 10-2 this year.
Well, I think you ought to be optimistic after the last couple of years.
Yes, sir. Paul, I want to talk about scheduling. Y'all have made some disparaging comments about the schedules of a number of the teams. Now, as I understand it, scheduling usually is at least 6 or 7 years out, and sometimes even more, so that it's very difficult to know when you schedule someone if they're going to be up or down in their cycle. And, for example, Arkansas was supposed to have Michigan this year. Now, thank goodness we don't. But it was replaced with Eastern Illinois. And so it's just very hard to predict what's going to be happening 6, 7, 10 years down the road. Also, you constantly talk about wanting to eliminate the cupcake games, and you're not real big on the in-state rivalries. 2 points. One, I may be one of the few Arkansas fans that wants to do this, but I would love to see an Arkansas State game. And with regard to cupcake games, Paul, if we go to a 9-game SEC schedule, and if at any time in the reasonably near future there's an expansion to the playoffs, how much are we expecting of the players? I mean, I'm really concerned about the load that's put on the players. And one other thing, you've mentioned UMass. Hasn't UMass played a number of SEC teams in the recent years and done relatively well?
I know they played Mississippi State recently. I don't remember them doing They played. I think they did play a really close game against Florida. You're right.
Yeah, I think we ought to give UMass a tad more respect. And Paul, on a personal note, shortly after the national championship, I don't know what that January 7th or 8th, 9th, somewhere in there, my health declined, and I wasn't able to watch the program for up until about 2.5 weeks ago. And I just want you to know that I missed the Finebaum family, and quite truly, there were days when along about 2 o'clock or so, you're on 2 to 6 in the Central Time Zone, along about 2 o'clock or so, I would seriously be thinking, well, I hope Ed in Connecticut's all right. I hope Millie's all right. I miss you and John and Mark. And let me just say that while Danny Krams and Randy Heritage are very able backup players, I'm sticking with that first squad of John and Mark. And just really did miss you guys.
Well, Ben, let me say this before you go. Thank you very much for saying that. And I'm really glad that your health is better, or at least good enough that you're now back with us, because it's no fun to be sick. And thank you for the kind comments. We all appreciate that.
Well, Paul, one other thing is, now, while I consider you guys family, there are days when you absolutely burn me up. And I was so pleased the other day when you came back and apologized to Joe and Red Bay. I was trying to get through and had determined that if I didn't get through, I was going to write you a letter. But you rectified that situation. So we're family, but we don't always get along.
No, and you're right. I think you may have heard me say this, Ben, but when I went home that night, I thought about that, and it bothered me. I said, why did I do that? And you sometimes you don't realize, and I'll speak for myself, obviously, you don't realize what impact something like this may have. I mean, we take what we do very seriously, but I don't think we take ourselves seriously, so it's hard sometimes to compute and digest what somebody in Arkansas or Alabama or wherever is doing, and the importance of a phone call. And that really woke me up. That will never happen again.
Well, Paul, when you're on the air 4 hours a day, 5 days a week, and you're dealing with as many callers as you are and as many personalities and opinions as you are, it's going to be hard not to make an error.
The one thing we are going to do, though, Ben, and we put John Hayes in charge of Joe from Red Bay's 6-year-old grandson's T-ball
there you go.
Career. So John is going to Alabama this weekend and is going to. We're doing a 30 for 30 on his 6-year-old.
What if I told you?
Well, that's a wonderful thing, Paul. You guys take care, enjoy the program. But as I say, man, some days I have to fight picking up that phone and trying to get through because you said something that peeved me.
Well, I am most of all, I'm really glad you're feeling better, Ben. Glad to have you back.
Thank you, sir. Y'all take care.
Welcome back as we continue. Busy day. Really, enjoyed the conversations with Keith Mitchell and Jason Dufner. As we mentioned, the PGA Tour event going on down the street, so wasn't too difficult to get some folks over here, but I am really glad we did. Andy Staples now joining us, of course, from Sports Illustrated to talk about many things. No telling on a weekend like this with the Derby tomorrow, Cinco de Mayo. I'm sure Andy Staples is really focused in on college football right now.
I'm at the pool, Paul. I'm serious. So I got home. I was in Phoenix because, all the different conferences meet out there.
Right.
I got home this morning off a red eye, and I'm informed by my wife, this is after I talked to your producer, John, that, hey, you're taking the kids to the pool after school. So here I am.
Well, that's fine. We can talk about volleyball. There's beach volleyball going on. There's a lot of.
We can. There's beach volleyball. I mean, there's kind of a belly flop contest going on right now. I don't know if you just heard that. Can openers,
so how old are your kids?
Screwdrivers are what you drink. Mine are 8 and 7. So,
okay.
And there's a bunch of other ones about the same age. So you will hear screaming, and somebody found a black snake. It's a bit of a big adventure today.
Do they know? I know that they know you, but do they know who their father is?
They just know I'm the idiot who leaves for 2 or 3 days at a time and then comes home and has to watch football all day.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure they were aware of the reach of Andy Staples.
They know I like to reach for ribs often and pulled pork and occasionally brisket if I'm in Texas.
Andy, considering I doubt your bosses are listening right now up north, but when you go to these meetings, I mean, you're not just some lunch bucket guy like I used to be at a local newspaper. I mean, you work for Sports Illustrated. What do you do, and what do you gain from going to all these highfalutin meetings at these 5-star resorts?
Well, it kind of depends on the year. Because when realignment was going on, it was a lot of,
that was exciting.
You find somebody, you find an AD or a coach, and they'll have questions for you, and you'll have questions for them, and you kind of duck off into a corner and whisper, and it's very, there's a lot of intrigue. But now with all these things settled, playoffs settled, realignment settled for now, it's more for me just looking at big picture type stuff. I'll talk to a coach if I'd like to do a big feature on one of his players down the road. I'll say, hey, here's what I'm thinking about. Is this something you guys would be down for? Because it requires a little more access than the usual story, and we'll kind of broker that sort of thing. I'll get some ideas for later in the year. Most of the stuff I'll write over the summer comes from ideas that I get either at that Phoenix meeting or Amelia Island where the ACC meets, or in Destin with the SEC.
Because, I mean, maybe I'm missing something, swimming in these waters every day, but it just doesn't seem like there are today that many critical issues in college football. I realize the basketball commission. I realize down the road there are a lot of things going on, but what would you say is the biggest issue facing the sport right now?
There's really not a whole bunch. What's interesting is some of this basketball stuff is going to bleed over into football. We talked to Larry Scott from the Pac-12 yesterday about the idea of guys coming. Let's say one and done is eliminated, which it's possible the NBA may do that in the next couple of years, and then guys can go into the draft at a high school. But if they don't get drafted, maybe they can come play college ball. Or if guys leave college, go through the draft but don't hire an agent, and go all the way through the draft in basketball and don't get drafted, maybe they can come back. Well, if you can do that in basketball, shouldn't there be a way to do something like that in football? Maybe not have them go all the way through the draft, but at least let them go through the combine, because that's where they're going to get some real unvarnished opinions from NFL coaches who may be telling them, hey, listen, I don't care what your dude from back home saying or that agent who's whispering in your ear. You're not a first-round pick. You need to go back to school. You could improve your status by 3 rounds if you play well next year. That's the sort of thing that a player's going to listen to. So I would like to know if there's a way to do that. And I know Nick Saban talked about that when Brett Bielema was at Arkansas. He talked about that. I think there's a way to figure that out. And I think it would be helpful to those players. It'd certainly be helpful to the college teams getting experienced guys back. And then the NFL, it's kind of a no net effect because they don't care. They're just going to pick the guys who can play anyway.
Andy, you mentioned, I think it was 7 or 8 years ago when expansion happened. That's one of the biggest stories I can remember. And we get a couple of questions every week on this program about expansion. Look ahead, because right now it seems fairly docile. When is that next moment when we could see this, and what's your best guess on what will happen then?
It's when TV contracts start coming due or coming up for renewal. And the first set of those, you've got the Big Ten, which did a 6-year deal last year. So around 2023 is when that'll start heating up. I believe the Pac-12 goes through 2024. The Big 12 goes through the 2024-25 academic year. So probably about 2022, 2023, you're going to see people kind of jostling for position and trying to figure out what they're doing. The thing now is that makes it impossible to predict is we don't know what's going to drive it. What drove it last time was cable television, territorial acquisition. Can you get territory that you don't already have? Your network that you are on right now exists and is viable and is very profitable because the SEC added a school in Texas and a school in Missouri. It added, 12 million cable subscribers to the footprint, and that really helped. But that won't be driving it next time because peak cable is over, people are cutting the cord, is it going to be Amazon that wants to buy all these rights next time? Is it going to be ESPN? Is it going to be Facebook? We have no idea, and that's what makes it so hard to predict.
Do you see conferences shrinking? And I ask you that because the Big 12 is always the one people wonder about. It's the only one of the major 5 that doesn't have a television contract.
It's funny, we made fun of the Big 12 so much because they only had 10 schools. We made fun of them because it looked like everybody's going to leave them in the dust with their fancy conference networks. The Big 12 has come out of this smelling like a rose financially. They make just as much money as the ACC. They make more than the Pac-12. The Big Ten and the SEC are always going to make more just because those fan bases are just deeper, invested, more passionate, just care more. It just means more thing. I know people make fun of it, but it's true. So, and it's also true of the Big Ten. But the Big 12 has a nice model going. They only have to split the money 10 ways, and they're making a lot of it. So, I don't think a bunch of 16-team conferences is going to happen at this point. Because logistically, I just don't see how it works. 14's unwieldy enough. 15 with the ACC when Notre Dame's playing the other sports seems pretty unwieldy. I would, if you did that, I think you should almost break it into 8-team leagues. And maybe, you can have a championship game between the 2 champions of each division, but don't have them play each other during the year. Just make them into their own leagues, because I think having smaller leagues where everybody plays each other, I think that helps with rivalries. I think that just makes it more intense. But, yeah, I don't know. I don't know how you would shrink it now, because it's not like Mississippi State or Vanderbilt or Wake Forest is going to say, well, I know we're not worth as much to the league as everybody else, so we'll just go somewhere else.
Always interesting. Andy, we kept you here for about 10 minutes. We didn't hear any kids splashing. We didn't hear anything going on, so we will let you get back to...
But there's a Frisbee out, Paul. I need to get in on this.
The kiddie pool. Andy, thank you, as always.
Thanks, Paul.
Great stuff. Now, that's a good father. Welcome back to the program. Really been a good one so far. Let's go to Evan in Los Angeles. Evan, welcome to the show. Evan, go right ahead. I never heard Evan. How about Lily? Lily, good afternoon.
Hi, Mr. Paul. Hello. How are you doing?
Hey, Lily. What's going on with you?
Nothing much. Right now, I'm at home and got some homework done.
So Lily, they tell me you're 13?
Yes, sir, I am.
Wow, that's a great age to be.
Yes, sir, it is.
Well, so what grade does that put you in?
So I'm in 7th grade right now.
7th grade. Remember that one?
I'll be in 8th grade next year. So
that's great. Well, I'm
excited about that.
Really glad you called.
Thank you so much.
So what can we help you with tonight?
Well, I would like to ask, what is your favorite sport?
Wow. Probably right now, Lily, I would say college football.
Yeah, I love some football.
Yeah, I mean, I used to, growing up, I was probably a bigger baseball and basketball fan, but I moved to Alabama and I saw the light.
Oh, yeah.
Are you an Alabama or Auburn fan?
Oh, Alabama. I love Alabama.
I just had a strange feeling about that.
Yeah.
Who's your favorite Tide football player?
I think I like all of them because they're all really good, and I don't really have just a favorite one.
Okay. Well, that's fair. They're all pretty good right now, I can tell you that.
Yes, sir, they are.
Well, listen, you have a great weekend, Lily, and I hope you'll call again.
All righty, thank you so much.
Good to hear from you. Thanks, Lily. We go from, how old was she, 11? 13. 13. We go from a 13. Mark, you're what, 15?
Yeah, that's correct, Paul.
Mark is in the Boston area. Mark, go right ahead.
How are you, Paul?
We're doing great, bud.
Well, so what do you think about this whole Tennessee situation? I've been really busy the last few weeks. I haven't really had the opportunity to call in, but I saw that the University of Tennessee, there's more light on this athletic director switch. There was something extra that was just released about that. Is that correct?
Well, all I know about Tennessee is that the chancellor was dismissed. She is the one who originally chose John Curry over Philip Fulmer, and then she fired him and now has hired Fulmer. Yeah, so she's kind of a strange. You could certainly question what in the world's going on in Knoxville.
Was that related to the athletic department?
No, I don't think it had anything to do with it. I think she just, in terms of checking boxes, I think she failed at every one.
And it was a firing.
Well, they never say people are fired. Only Trump fires people. They said that she was relieved of her duties as chancellor immediately, and then she will return later in the year in the College of Communications. They part of the reason they let her go for her main job was poor communications. So it makes a lot of sense, does it not? If you're going to get rid of a chancellor because they don't communicate well, to put them in your communication school.
Yeah. And so I saw that. I was just checking what that was all about. And so, the NFL draft last year, how do you think Mayfield will fit with the Browns?
I actually think he's going to be pretty good.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. But what I'm just worried about is his team around him is all young guys. They really lack a leader and some veteran.
Well, that's why he has the opportunity, I think, to become the team leader, don't you?
Right, but I think everybody's growing at the same time, and at first I loved the Mayfield pick because I really love Mayfield.
Hey, I hate to interrupt you. 13-year-old, 15-year-old, who's we say hello to you. It's been a good one today. I hope you have been with us. Let's grab some more calls here. And William in Maryville is up next. How are you, William?
Dr. Finebaum, how are you?
Quite well. Great to hear from you.
Well, I was just sitting here and I heard the earlier caller, but, I got a little bad news for you. You're being relieved of your duties as chief of surgery because you're a terrible surgeon. But what we're going to do is we're going to make you a surgeon in the ER so you can kill the poor and uninsured at the same pay. How does that sound?
Well, you know something about that. You're a smart guy. What do you think the odds are of Beverly Davenport ever teaching a class in the communications building?
Oh, I think slim to none. Of course, my problem, I still think we've got a village idiot leading the clown parade in Knoxville, but, DiPietro hired her, and I read the letter that he wrote her and talked about her communication skills and lack of organization skills. Well, number one, he hired her, but number two, I don't think he said anything about her judgment and some of the decisions she's made. So, I hate to make
I would.
this
by the way,
political.
I would like to know what really went down. That was a fascinating letter, but it's. I think we're missing the lead of the story, though, don't you?
Oh yes, sir. I don't think we have a real clue, except that I don't know. You know my feelings about Curry and Schiano and Butch. I thought we were getting things cleaned up, but I think folks need to understand they need to go vote to get us a governor that can appoint a board of trustees that can get things straightened out in Knoxville.
I saw today no. The governor's election is coming up when? Soon or next year or not?
Well, the primary is going on now.
Oh, okay, so yeah, got it.
The primary is going on now. You've got some pretty heated Republicans and Randy Boyd from here in East Tennessee, and so they're all kind of lining up as to what's going to happen with the lower number of board of trustees and all that. That I think there were 27 people on the board at one point. It's been reduced.
Just for the record, I want to clear this up. I am not a candidate to be the chancellor at UT. I know that there's a lot of conversation.
Well, I was going to promote that. I really thought I'd send the letter. Maybe send another letter and get you. I'd rather have you than anybody else, just about.
I mean, do I think I could do a better job than the last person? Obviously, I do. But
I know you could do it. But Paul, you have better communication skills. You could be teaching and making big bucks over there in the communications college.
That's always been my dream.
Hey, I'm a little upset, though, you told the young lady, Lily, that you only became a football fan after you moved to Alabama. That didn't say much about your Tennessee roots, does it?
You know,
that's a little harsh, Paul.
my Tennessee years were not great when it came to football. Basketball was king when I was there.
Well, you know, maybe we can bring you back around someday. You know,
I'm always available. It's not far away.
Well, come visit Maryville. Everybody, whoever answers the phone, it says Maryville. How do you spell that? And I want to go Murydille, but they don't quite get it.
No,
but have a great weekend, and
thank you very much.
More drama in Knoxville to talk about, and go vote for a good governor. Get board of trustees moving in the right direction.
Thank you, William. Always a pleasure. Thank you very much. Larry is up. Larry, now before we get to the heart of the matter, what's going on, Larry? I'm hearing some complaining by you in the background.
Complaining?
Yeah.
You got that right, Jack. Going after my man Rich, that scuzz bucket you got working in that control room, and he tries to say that Notre Dame, if Bama had their schedule, it'd lose 3 games. He says it every year. Well, Bama should lose 3 or 4 games every year. He says.
Are you talking about the scuzz bucket, Mark Kubiak?
You got that right, Jack. And I'm fixing to put an ultimatum down, okay?
Okay. Mark?
Here it goes.
Go ahead, Larry.
Let me tell you something. My man, Rich, he's generic country boy. He's a generic. You know what that means?
He's a Yankee.
Him. No! A generic means they remade him. No.
You don't get to make the rules, Larry. I'm sorry. That's not how the game is played.
They remade him. But I'm going to tell you something. You and Mark.
How are you making people now?
Let me tell you how chicken y'all are. Okay, May 12th, we're supposed to play golf. And again, both you chicken heads ain't going to play. You know why?
Because we're both out of town, Larry. We can't make it. We can't make it. We're both out of town, okay?
What's
the ultimatum?
Yeah, what's the ultimatum?
No one likes an ultimatum in any relationship, Larry. What do you want?
Back in till we get a golf game set. If you don't want to set us a date to play, then I ain't calling this show again. Now, I'm sure make y'all happy.
Hold on a second. Larry, are you trying to extort us now?
No, I'm just telling you the facts, Jack. If y'all ain't got no courtesy and Big Ten John puts his foot in his mouth...
No, Larry, are you giving us an ultimatum?
Well, I just laid it down, Jack, so I'm sure there's a lot of y'all going to be happy.
It's only fair that if you give us an ultimatum, you have to be able to spell ultimatum.
No, I ain't spelling ultimatum. No.
Give it a shot, Larry.
No.
Give it a shot.
I'm too mad.
First letter?
U.
U. Second letter?
L.
L.
T-A-M-A-T-I-N.
Okay. U-L-T-A-M-A-T.
I think he spelled ultimate tomato. Larry, I'll tell you what. I like ultimatums. Okay, so I think John and I can figure this golf thing out if you admit that Rich is a Yankee.
Oh no, man! That's not. This ain't supposed to work like this.
That's the ultimatum. You threw one at us. We will set up a golf date.
Hey, Larry, you know what? I really don't want to hear any more of this.
Okay, goodbye, Jack. How about that, Jack?
Larry, I just thought of something. Seriously.
Oh, he's gone.
All right, think about this, Larry. When you're listening, we know you're still listening. The week of SEC Media Days. Maybe the weekend before.
I don't care about this stuff anymore.
Okay, we'll take it off the air. But this golf match is going to happen. I'll leave it at that.
Can't you Facebook each other or something?
They're the ones who call to talk about it, Paul.
Okay.
We don't bring it up on the show.
Can you just say, can't you Facebook each other? That's the oldest thing you've ever said.
I mean, is there like anything more uninteresting to the mass audience than whether Rich and Larry played John and whomever in a golf match? Do you agree with me, Randy? Okay. Let's. I tell you what. Well, I meant, like you can't get on Facebook and carry this conversation out, or Skype, or Snipe. Solo, holo, hulo.
Hulu.
You know what we ought to do right now?
Yes.
Let's class
MySpace each other?
MySpace. Ooh. Let's prodigy each other.
Oh, man.
Hey, Mark.
Yes?
Would you hit me up on AOL and I'll hit you back?
Instant Messenger?
I'll be in a chat room. I'll be in the Finebaum Show chat room. That's before John's time, isn't it?
What if we had a chat room, the Finebaum chat room going?
Hey,
right
we did.
Now?
It got shut down.
How many times?
Shocking.
Years ago, this program was one of the first radio shows.
Back when it was good.
It was live streamed on television, not on television, but on video live streamed. And we put a chat room, and it got so vulgar, so out of control, and it's a couple of people in particular that are well known to the audience that the company shut it down. Not doing that again. But my point was, let's class the place up. What's the phrase? Let's class the joint up. We've had Larry. Let's get a legitimate college football caller in here now.
I could beat all y'all in golf.
Oh,
Matt.
I could. Hey, did y'all see where yesterday I didn't call into the show because I won a tournament here.
And we were supposed to see that. Where were we supposed to see that?
Here's my question, Paul. If you don't care about our golf tournament, why do you give a rip about Matt and Gainesville's golf tournament?
I'm just saying I can beat y'all. That's all I'm saying. But
here we go.
Let's
no.
It's like Georgia can beat Bama.
Okay, John, I'm taking what I said.
Well, Paul's got so much elephant crap on his nose, he can't see straight. He could never run for Chancellor at University of Tennessee. I've never heard so much kiss call. Alabama, meet your
here's
folks.
the deal. Let's forget. I'm going to take back something John Hayes.
Okay.
I spoke too soon. What I got tired of was this back and forth with you guys. We now have a serious challenger here. Matt, a Georgia guy, versus the Alabama boys.
Now we're talking.
Days, they couldn't even. I bet Larry couldn't spell golf. I guarantee you he'd spell it Gawll.
He'd probably spell it backwards and come up with flog.
Y'all got to stop giving that guy such hard words. Like, come on, ultimatum.
Okay, hey Matt, you got a partner? You and Darriel.
I ain't taking Darriel.
I hate to tell you, we're telling you, you're taking Darriel. We got Larry and Rich versus Darriel and Matt, and I'll pay to see this.
I'm not taking Darriel. I'll get Darrell's close. He's an undercover Alabama fan. We know that. He's
undercover.
Why did he hang up?
Everyone in the neighborhood knew about Bobby. Bobby, the basketball boy, they called him. Bobby wanted to go pro someday, so he was always out in the driveway shooting hoops. But one day, his mom came out and told him,
"Hey, your wife wants you to take out the trash?"
His mom was visiting, and Bobby was a grown man. He had kind of missed his window. Plus, no one had ever seen him actually make a basket. But on the other hand, Bobby had heard how Geico could save him money on car insurance, so he switched and saved. So, it was all good.
Okay, we are back. I think we have Matt. Matt, are you back? We lost you a minute ago.
My Sports Illustrated cell phone. Okay, here's the deal. Uncle Lou is my partner, and we'll do best score per hole.
Okay. Hey, but
I wouldn't get on GHIN.com and check out my handicap, Mark and Randy.
So I mean, what is your handicap?
I can't say, Paul.
I mean, I can look it up if I knew your last name. Actually, I do know your last name.
Well, I'm a 4 now. I used to be a scratch. I mean, my team shot 17 under in a 4-ball yesterday deal.
So on you're playing pretty good tracks here to get this handicap?
Yeah, I mean, I play a little bit better than Alabama dirt tracks. Yeah, we're in Georgia, but I mean, I probably shoot. I don't play as near as much as I used to, but I probably shoot 75, 76.
No, I mean that's listen. Scratch to a 4 is pretty amazing golf for You're a guy that works as hard as you do every day.
I bet you Mark and what's Mark shoot? I bet you he shoots real good.
Mark and John, could you handle a 4 handicap guy?
No, I'm getting strokes off of that.
Yeah.
Probably about 3 aside.
Okay, that's fine. I would make the bet if Larry could make it through the round without passing out. I mean, that'd be the real bet.
Okay. Let's come up with some prop. Forget. I mean, nobody cares who is a better golfer, but we do care about. I mean, the prop bets though would be hilarious. Okay, one of your bets would be: would Larry get through the round?
I bet you he could. If he can drink 18 beers and call you at 5:30, he can get through the round.
Yeah, but can you get through the round without him punching you out?
No, I can't promise that.
I mean, he does like to scrap, you know.
Yeah, I know. I'd have to get one of those like Joel Embiid masks, to play golf.
Yeah, I mean, most golfers prefer to, like on the 17th hole, to shape their ball right or left, as opposed to like duke it out with a 75-year-old guy.
Yeah, if we're playing golf in Atlanta, I mean, I don't know. Larry, you can't wear jeans in most Atlanta golf courses. So,
you think Larry would fit in at East Lake?
Larry would fit in at East Lake like I would fit in at an Alabama gas station.
So, you got to give the boy credit. He's got the retorts today.
Yeah. So, I just love the guy who called in earlier and said, well, I'm from Destin, Florida, and Saban and Georgia's or Alabama's 4-0.
Hey, by the way, I just looked down. I saw Joe from Red Bay on hold. Anything you want to say to him?
Not really.
Anything you'd like to say to him before?
Could you take his IQ and Squirrel Nut's IQ and make it? Would that be greater than Alabama's win total last year? I don't know.
Hold on a second, Matt, because Joe's a friend. Go ahead, Joe.
Matt, I got news for you.
Stories. No
we don't want you in our gas stations. We don't want you using our restaurant.
You don't have to worry about
and
that.
I wouldn't go to Georgia to take a leak. And I don't want to hear about your Alabama hating stories either. And Larry would take your ass any day of the year, any day. And you're nothing.
You know why Alabama's an hour behind, don't you? Because Alabama's an hour behind.
I'd like to know.
This guy's on a roll right now. You got to give Matt credit. He's had one of the better comebacks I've ever seen on this show.
Guess what, Matt? Roll Tide roll, and Georgia is never going to beat Alabama. You're hating. You can crack all the jokes you want because that just means we're whooping your butts, and you're just nothing but a you.
If they shut down Alabama football in Talladega, I don't know. Y'all have to fish.
The chicken scraps after Jim from Tuscaloosa smooches them.
The last time I went to Tuscaloosa, y'all lost. So I remember that real well. I know that was 11 years ago, but last time we went to Tuscaloosa, there was a lot of sad rednecks. Y'all thought Saban was a Yankee that day. So,
well, how many years has it been now that we've been beating y'all's butt year after year? Every time we play,
our butt by 3 points.
You're close, but no cigar.
Y'all really wore us out in the national championship. All 3 points, right? Overtime, right? I mean, y'all just wore us out. I mean, you had to put a freshman in to beat us.
Okay, Matt, this is not fair because Joe went down pretty hard. I mean, let's be honest.
Okay.
I mean, you ever watch WWE where you throw somebody out of the ring and then their partner, and the Rumble.
You being a native Tennessean, did you see where Kane from WWE?
I did.
Is now
He's the new mayor of Knoxville. I couldn't be prouder.
Is he really?
Hey, by the way, Matt, someone else wants to say hello to you from Alabama.
Oh gosh.
Legend.
Woo! Legend.
Woo! Talking to a Rolex now, Max. Talking to somebody who knows football, dude. I like Joe from Red Bay.
Legend.
You want to talk about the Georgia Bulldogs, the Buffalo Bills of college football, like you accomplished something, dude. I knew I was going to beat you the whole game. You the Buffalo Bills of college football.
Beat you the whole game?
Lose is what you do, dude.
Y'all should have just bought tickets for overtime, right? Y'all didn't have to watch
some
the
good
first
stuff
quarter.
today.
That time better not run out on
You
that
sound like
payphone.
Beavis and Butthead, dude. Make a point. This is a conversation.
Butthead?
Make a point, dude. Make a point.
I'm just too busy. Make a point. I made a point. There's a reason y'all are an hour behind in Alabama. Because you're an hour behind. That's my point. That's a pretty good point.
Yeah, like you got
if you
something
got rid
going
of
on in
Alabama
Georgia,
football,
dude,
if you
with
got rid
the
of Alabama
Hawks and the
football in
Braves
Talladega,
and the
y'all-
Falcons, dude. You've been having a professional team for 50 years, and you got one championship. The state of Massachusetts got about 100 during those same period. You talk about like Atlanta so much better than Alabama and Birmingham, dude. You don't even have a professional sport team when it gets right
Birmingham's
down to
not
it.
even bigger than Birmingham's not even bigger than Dufner, Georgia. Come on now. I mean, seriously. I mean,
Birmingham's
you
pretty
probably
big.
don't
Come
even
on,
know where
Legend. They got an
people
airport. I mean,
Hey, we
Matt-
got an airport, dude. We got an airport. Hey, and there ain't nothing wrong with the Magic City. Everything that Georgia has ever done is because they copied it from the state of Alabama. I mean, the SEC championship, they got that from the state of Alabama. You got to get Julio and Calvin Ridley to actually have a receiving core in Atlanta.
Well,
I don't
it's
want to talk
funny.
about the
You know,
Hawks, dude. That's
it's
a
funny.
CEA
It's funny.
team that you got
You bring
going
up
on
you
over
bring
in
up a
Atlanta.
great point there.
I mean,
Hey, hold on, Legend. Let's hear Matt. Legend. Let's listen to Matt here.
Can I say
Okay.
a point here?
You want to come out here?
Can I make a point here?
Go right ahead.
The New England Patriots have about how many University of Georgia players and how many Super Bowls have they won? My Atlanta Falcons keep drafting Alabama players, and we blew the biggest lead in history.
At the University of Alabama that headed up their defense, dude. I mean, every pro player you put in the NFL, I don't see AJ.
Hey, why don't Legend? I don't really want to do. This is not NFL Live here. Let's keep this to college football, okay?
Yeah. When's the last time y'all had a quarterback besides Joe Namath go to the NFL?
Hey, that's a valid point. That's a valid point. But we just turn them into radio broadcasters, dude. That's all we do at the University of Alabama. At least they got a career beyond football. At least they got a career beyond football. That's more than you can say for your pro
quarterback.
quarterback.
Herschel done awful, right? Yeah,
Yeah, so you got Matthew Stafford, and who else, dude? Who else you got in the NFL you bragging about at quarterback? And he's garbage.
Yeah, he's pretty
the
good,
most
right? He got
high-paid
$70
garbage
million.
quarterback in the NFL. Ain't never won more than 8 games in his whole career. And a single season.
He went to the playoffs.
Hey,
Yeah,
hey guys, Legend and Matt, we got to wrap up. But why don't we spend Why don't we spend the last minute talking about what's going to happen this year?
Yeah, we're going to kick
what's
your
gonna
ass,
happen
Matt,
this year?
again, because you're the Bills of college football.
I just hope y'all make it to the SEC championship, Legend, because I really don't think y'all are going to.
I hope you deal with that big schedule that you got this year. I'm sure it's going to be difficult for you to get there.
We'll still be there.
Yeah.
We could go 10-2 and be in the SEC championship. Y'all can't. Y'all are going to lose to Auburn again. I have a feeling.
Hey, Legend, Alabama Legend, Alabama skate.
Who got the ring?
Hey, Legend. Hey, Legend. He made a good point. Alabama's schedule is not exactly NFL quality.
Hey, I don't care. As long as we get to Georgia and kick their ass again and raise that trophy, it's all about the ring.
You didn't kick
at the University of Alabama. That's what it's about. And all about Georgia is watching us celebrate on the opposite sideline. That's the only thing Georgia can celebrate.
Okay, we're up against break. Legend, thank you for the call. Matt, thank you. You both were good sports. We actually had a civil conversation.
Set the golf tournament up.
We'll debate this when we come back. Back with more.
All right. Go Dogs.
Welcome back. Final 30 minutes of the week. Another guy, you flip the button and you do not have to say his name.
Live from the capital city.
Correct.
You know, Matt had a great call with you. Great call. Fantastic call. He was slinging them out of the park. Then Joe from Red Bay steps up. And after Matt said hello, I had to eject Matt for spearing Joe, and he still won. So that's 2-0.
Who you said? You said Joe from Red Bay won? Oh, Matt won?
No. Matt won. Just saying
hello.
Yeah.
That was not close.
Mean, he never recovered. He didn't even know he was there.
Joe walked in and just kept walking right out of the ring. He got.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. I mean, they can't even name a dance.
The problem we had with Matt when Legend showed up is we couldn't get him to be serious.
Well, the problem with Legend, he came on with his tired old diatribe, but he's sitting back there, he's huffing and puffing, he's a ringside wrestling fan, and he's all caught up in it. I want some of this, give me some of this right now. Kiss the wing. And he came in and forgot his own stick. Then he had to go to the NFL card. We were talking college football. Matt dribbled him around like all of the Harlem Globetrotters, and then threw a bucket on his head, and confetti just laying on Legend's shoulders like Millie on a Friday night with a bad arrangement. Trifecta. Matt slammed it out of the park, Paul.
The only thing I would say to Matt, and he kind of fell into the same trap the Atlanta Falcons did. He forgot. He didn't close it out. He just started. Typical rich frat boy, started laughing, joking, high-fiving, accepting the congratulations, and he was in the ring with Legend. Legend's a guy that may not play fair, you know.
Legend out.
The Marcus rules of Queensberry might not be applicable with Legend.
No, but he was still outclassed. Legend out-kicked his own coverage. He forgot his own stick, Paul. He even paused and said, "Make a point, and that was it. Legend ran out of material at that point, and he had to rethink. Now you're talking about the Kiss the Wing, the Will Wing guy, and he got dribbles, got punked. Matt 3-0. Now, Paul, let's talk about that chat room. That chat room was something else, and it did get out of hand.
By the way, what happened to that? What was the problem? I can't remember.
The problem was Jim from Tuscaloosa was cussing everybody, and he was threatening people at the station in Birmingham, and just going off the chains. There was people going to stab me in the chest, death threats, and all kinds of stuff.
Those
and
are good times.
I have taken it, and that's when Auburn lady showed up, and that was Tammy.
Oh,
that's when she started calling. She was in the chat room.
Oh, okay.
But I have taken threats. I've had everything, and guess what? From washed out rock stars to old fat football players to callers in my face, in my wheel face, and I'm still standing tough. And Matt could have closed it out and really shamed Birmingham when he was talking about how big Birmingham was. I think Birmingham is the only city in the state of Alabama that's got a statue. When the sun shines, it's a full moon on the city. Now, you have a great day, War Damn Eagle. We are only getting faster. War Matt.
Fatback is up next. Fatback, welcome to the end of the show on Friday. Go right ahead.
Paul, I appreciate you, brother. I generally stay out of the tit and tat. I generally call and tell you about these out-of-country exotic destinations where I go and play golf, like Florida. And I went and played in Iowa last week, another foreign country. But a couple of things today that just kind of irked me, brother. Why are you trying to marry Matt from Gainesville? I'm waiting for you to propose on TV to him. He can't bring it. And secondly, Matt, I'll take my Ping G30s and shove them so far up that UGA butt, it'll make your head spin. And secondly, y'all need to lay off of Larry, my brother from Alabama. Fatback out.
Fatback out. Good to have you on. What? Lewis in South Carolina. Hello, Lewis. Welcome to our program.
Hey, Mr. Paul, and it's been a barn burner.
Thank you.
It has been a barn burner. And I enjoy listening to John and Mark. They might need a little more airtime.
I don't know. They just got dissed by one of the greatest callers in Finebaum show history.
Well, I think a lot of them good boys. I heard one of your callers, and you can tell me if I'm wrong or right, but I think it was Matt, particularly Georgia, going 13-0, not losing a game.
That's what he said, yeah.
Paul, do you think the average caller understands how hard it is to go undefeated?
No, I don't. I mean, and the greatest point you could make is, Nick Saban's had this dynasty, and throughout this dynasty, only one time has he gone wire to wire undefeated.
Yes, sir. Great.
Now, again, he's come within 2 seconds of being undefeated. Another time he ran the table in the regular season. Actually, a couple of times he did. But it is extremely difficult to do.
Yeah, I don't think everybody.
This is a Southeastern Conference here. We're not talking about some other conference.
Yes, sir. Well, you aren't talking about Clemson either.
No.
But they will be there when the smoke clears, in my opinion. My wife and my son both graduated from the University of South Carolina. I want you to tell me, is the Georgia game at South Carolina the second week of the year, is that tougher than playing LSU? And I think that's in Death Valley. Which is the tougher game?
I think Georgia's toughest game on the regular season schedule is at South Carolina.
Well, I think so, too, and I'm glad you agreed with me. And you and I talked earlier about quarterback controversy, and you and I agreed that there was no quarterback controversy at Alabama. But there are quarterback competitions. Clemson's got 4 quarterbacks this year. All of them supposed to be real good. But Alabama doesn't have a controversy. They got a competition. And I'm looking forward to it.
Great to hear from you, Lewis.
All right. Enjoy the show.
You bet. Always a pleasure. Okay, for those who missed it while we were talking to Lewis, this is from Jim from Tuscaloosa. He hashtags Matt from Gainesville. Matt actually has a Twitter handle. He said, Matt from Gainesville soared with his best call of the year. And, of course, imbecile Yankee Hayes disses him. Same garbage per Hayes. Hayes equals show killer.
No mention of Kubiak.
No.
So, see? He didn't diss me.
Yeah, I'm a show killer, and I should get more airtime all within 3 minutes on the show.
I know.
That's what you get here. But my question is, I am just shocked at Jim and Matt from Gainesville forming this partnership. And if there was a partnership that I didn't see coming, it was that, because Matt certainly is threatening Jim as best caller on the show right now.
But Jim knows winners.
But
Jim knows winners.
That's a good point.
Jim knows winners, and he realizes Alabama callers.
You don't understand, though.
Hop on. Trains
Jim
moving.
respects sapiens.
Yes, he does.
And he sees another sapient caller in Matt.
Let's go to break.
I think. Did I say that right? Welcome back. As we begin to wind things down here, let's continue with Johnny in Orlando. Johnny, welcome to the program, and good afternoon.
How you doing, Paul? Great show so far.
Thank you very much.
Kick out of it.
Thanks
I
a lot.
just wanted to compliment your gentleman in the windows, John and Mark.
Yes.
It reminds me, Paul, your program reminds me of Johnny Carson and Ed McMahon.
Oh,
and
wow.
You're Johnny Carson and they're Ed McMahon.
Always wanted to be Johnny. That's a great compliment.
That's a compliment
Your
to
doc?
John and Mark, because Ed McMahon was very successful.
Oh, Ed was the greatest sideman ever.
Yeah, I don't know if John and Mark know that.
I guarantee you John and Mark have never seen Johnny Carson.
Yeah. Listen, I wanted to ask you a question, a serious question, okay? What is the fastest growing sport you think on your programs on the network there?
What is the fastest growing sport?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I think we're talking college sports. Is that what we're talking about, John?
Yeah, college.
I think of the there's a lot of softball and baseball. I think women gymnastics might be the answer to the question.
Yeah, I think gymnastics. I think women's softball and men's baseball.
Yeah,
because you see all these schools, they're upgrading their facilities on their campuses there, because they're having to, because more people are coming. And I think softball is slightly ahead of baseball because there's more action in softball.
No, I think you're right. It is a fast game. It's become incredibly popular, and the women's tournament starts next week, and then the NCAA tournament all the way to the Women's College World Series. You are correct. I mean, college baseball is extremely popular, but I think the women's sport is certainly equal to it.
Yeah, I watch it. And then, Paul, lastly and quickly, earlier in the show, some people were talking, and actually even in the later part of the show, people were talking about cupcake games.
Yes.
You know, I think they're necessary, Paul. I'll tell you why. 2 reasons. For the bigger teams, and I say bigger teams, the better teams most likely, it gives them a chance to see how, not how much better they are than other teams, but what it does is it gives the teams a chance to see how their people are going to react.
Yeah, but I can understand it in the opener if you don't play a major one. But where I really don't like it is in the next to the last game. And I realize if you're playing Auburn or Alabama or Florida State or Clemson or South, one of those games, it's a good idea. But it just seems like what I don't like is that weekend while Alabama's playing Citadel, Mercer, whatever the opponent is, you have these titanic games around the country. And the SEC just looks bad, even though it's not fair. Because we've already played the games. It's just everyone just picks on the SEC as if those are the games we play all the time, and that those aren't the games we play all the time.
And they try to grade the SEC by those games. And the last thing, or the part of that question or comment was, I think what it does also. The teams that are playing, the actual cupcake teams, and I hate to say that word for them, but it gives them a chance to make a little money for their program.
No, you're talking about almost, I saw a number the other day, Alabama's paying Utah State more than about $2 million. I mean, you make the entire budget if you're a small program. Thank you very much for the call. I do appreciate it. Matthew has been holding on. Matthew, what's going on?
Hey, Paul. How you doing, man?
We are doing well. Thank you.
Yes, I just, very avid SEC fan, and I just wanted you guys' opinion on this. Jake Fromm had an incredible, freshman year. I know he had to come in for an injury, but I just wanted your opinion. Do you think he might experience maybe like a sophomore slump or anything like that this year, maybe some troubling times, or maybe not be quite as on his game as he was?
Matthew, I think, that happens. I think if he was complacent in the position, he might, but everyone knows you got Fields there nipping at him, so I think that will keep him honest. Right. So that would be the one reason I would say no. He's got tremendous competition, and he's already been through that. So, I think if there was nobody after him, yes, but I don't think it will be the case.
I agree with you on that. He's a tremendous player, and I'm a big time Alabama fan, but I have a lot of respect for him. And, like you said, I agree with you on that. He's going to continue to be a very good college football player his whole career.
I think he's a great player. Hey, thank you very much. Iceman, not a lot of time. Welcome to the program, Iceman.
Hey, I just got a question to ask. I'll call you back later and tell you see how you doing and whatever you're doing. I'm like Larry. I've been at the 19th hole for about an hour. But look, I was just going to ask. I'm going to hang the phone up.
Hey, by the way, we're about 2 minutes away from the 19th hole. How is it in there?
Well, I'm about through with it. I got to go home. But look, I was just going to say, why can't you take the leash off Legend and let him run? You kept over talking him where he couldn't take Matt to the woodshed.
Well, we'll give him another chance. Thanks for the call, Iceman. Remember, you were listening to that in the 19th hole. You didn't hear it the same way the